I'm just gonna be like, surprise! I brought you here to talk about the NBA trade deadline. Like, you're like one of the two people that I know that actually still kind of watch the NBA when you and I were together. You know, like day in and day out. And I was like, this is the only guy I can talk to on earth right now that it's still okay to watch like a West Coast basketball game at 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. So let's start. We'll start with this. The guy you're seeing is my dear friend Eric. You say Kapraun? You
can say
How
Kapraun.
Do you like to say it the most?
You can say Kapraun, or you could say.
I feel like I'm underselling you when I say Kapraun.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Like,
Kapraun. Yeah,
Kapraun.
I think Kapraun works for me.
So I made your journey way out into the suburbs.
Yeah,
you're a city boy. I mean, you're a city boy that came from not the city. Right. And I was just down that neck. Got to see camp, got to see the boys, got to see the place, eat some food. Yep. White Oak's impressive now. Yeah. Have you been there like recently?
No, I haven't been to the taproom brewery in a little, like probably 2 years.
Dude, they where they used to brew the beer is like now just space, like empty storage space. And then they blew out, kind of like we did at Phase Three, a long time ago. Put a hole in the wall, and now they have this brand new brew system, and everything is so clean. Yep. The floor is like beautifully epoxied, and like it's kind of crazy. I was there the first time I was there. I was like, this place is kind of a mess. Like, everything was covered in grain dust, and it was like unorganized. And Scott's got that thing humming over there.
Good. One of the last times I was there was Christmas, either 21 or 2 or 20. I don't even remember, but we just like popped in because my in-laws live like really close to the brewery. We just went over to have a beer, and everyone was just hanging out in the brewery, and it was just like a party. I was like, man, are you guys making $1 right now?
It doesn't even make sense to me when I go there. I'm just like, it's so cool.
But now it's from what I'm hearing, it sounds like they've gotten the ship righted a little bit.
I mean, it's still the same place. Sure. It's still the same vibe, same people. I mean, it's so fucking warm and comfortable in there, like in the tap room. And then, like you said, like, I mean, Charlotte was down there, Dan Ray from Brothership, Pouch and me, and a bunch of people. I brought a couple friends with us. Tyson was down there and met us out for food at Kemp's and all that. And we went, we hung out, had a beer in the tap room. Of course, they were like, Scott was pouring them for us. No tabs are being opened. Sure. Everybody's just fucking around and saying hi. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, come in the back. And I'm like, think we're going to go back into the room with the Dusty Brewery. And we partied there before, and it was crazy. And used to have a refrigerator in the corner that had Twix or Crunch bars that were from the factory that's like right there. There was they made it so that the freshest Crunch bar you could possibly get. And then I looked around and I was like, hey, there's no brewing equipment in here. There's nothing. Like the piping for like the grain mill, in there. And then he walks us through the next door, and I was like, holy shit. Like this is incredible. I mean, it's just so clean. A big TV up there, and you got music playing, and
it's great.
All the stuff shiny, like everything was shiny.
Yeah,
the floor drains were beautiful. You know how important those floor drains are when you're adding on.
I do.
Oh my god.
That's great.
I told him, I was like, man, when I was at Phase 3 and they punched a hole in the wall, it cost us like a crazy amount of money. They're like, we didn't even pull a permit.
It's different. It's different in Central Illinois than Chicagoland.
I love going down there, man. It's great.
Yeah.
So is that where you grew up then? Like, what town was that you grew up? Was it closer to Champaign, or was it?
So I grew up in Minonka, Illinois. So I grew up kind of, if you made a map of Peoria, Bloomington, and Pontiac, I'm kind of like in between that triangle perfectly.
Pontiac, the home of Wally's. That's
right. The OG.
All you need to know, baby.
The OG. Correct.
Love me some Wally's.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up down there, playing against Lexington, where Kemp's is, and those teams in sports my whole childhood. But yeah, that's where I'm born and raised.
John Kemp was around. You weren't winning. I mean,
exactly.
John Kemp.
I used to, man, honestly, I grew up playing baseball. That was my sport. My build is pretty much, besides like a little bit of beer weight in the middle, like it's exactly the same as it's been for the last 40 years. Tall and skinny, just like my grandfather, most of my uncles, etc. But so we played baseball. That was my sport. And every time we played Lexington, there was just this one kid, and I feel like his name was Colt. I couldn't tell you his last name, but that kid,
fucking farm boy.
He was a big time farm boy. Right? He threw Country harder. Strong. He hit harder than everybody, and every year we would meet up with them in like a Central Illinois All-Star League tournament. They would just kick the shit out of us every year. And I remember the one time,
just like tradition at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one time we beat them, I at that point in my life, that was the highlight. It was just like, we beat Lexington. We did it.
Well, you got one though. I mean, that's pretty good.
We got one on
out of it.
We got one on them, and I don't even know if it was in the semifinals or finals. That was a jillion years ago.
It doesn't really matter, right?
Right.
At that point, it's like you beat them, you beat them.
Right. Even I mean, but for me, like obviously it was heartbreaking when we lost, but I just wanted to play baseball. That was like my life. I love it so much.
I mean, so real quick, general quick backstory, I guess, for Eric and I. I was the taproom manager for Phase 3 Brewing when they opened their spot up in Lake Zurich, and not too long, maybe like 8-9 months to a year after I was hired, they brought in a new head of sales, and that was my now friend Eric Kapraun. We used to share an office together.
Yeah, just like this, honestly.
We're complete. I don't want to say complete opposites. I mean, we're regular old white dudes that grew up, in like normal, families. But but like you came from down south. You lived in the city when I met you, so like I already met you as a full shaped, city boy. You had years in the business. I was still pretty fresh into the craft beer world. And Eric was awesome and just kind of like helping me just learn some things. And then, we good conversation, and to the point where we were playing catch every once in a while. We were talking about your baseball love. Yeah. Like we bring a glove and a ball, good de-stress in the back, throw a baseball on concrete, chase it.
Yeah, a lot more. I feel like probably just as much chasing as throwing and catching. But.
I'm so good now. I mean, my son's been playing travel ball the last 3 years, so I'm throwing so many baseballs. I feel like I could get back out there now. But
yeah,
I used to love hearing the Half Acre softball stories. That was.
We still play. We're still awesome. A team.
That's killer.
But enough about me.
Enough about me.
Yeah, how many...
The guy I invited on the podcast to talk about. Enough about me, 5 minutes in.
I am sincerely curious, though. How many games a year does your son play?
It's not too...
And when is it?
It's not too crazy.
Okay.
They were really bad last year. Record-wise, everything. There was no good. There was not a lot of good. Joseph did progress, which I always enjoy seeing him personally progressing, but not a great look last year. They were like 6-29 or something. So they played about 35 games. If you're winning tournaments, you're probably going to play closer to 45, 50 games.
Got it.
He started off when he first did travel. He did like quote unquote part-time travel, but when you do part-time travel, you also have to play in the in-house league for spring ball. So it's like you're playing 20 games in spring, and then your part-time travel team's playing another 20 games, and you're already playing 40 games. Plus, you're dealing with 2 sets of parents, 2 sets of everything, and schedules and all that. So it's like, why not just do the full-time travel?
Yeah.
And then you put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
So this is the first year I'm not coaching him, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good for him more than anyone.
Sure.
And then good for everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Me and another dad, we're thinking we're going to smash burgers in the outfield, do fundraisers out there, and just bringing a flat top with us.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking forward to.
Good.
I can't believe you guys still play softball. I mean, you worked at Half Acre for what, 9-10 years?
Little over 9 years. Yeah.
I even wore the hat today.
I see that.
I was like, Eric's coming over. Do I go with the Phase 3 hat, or do I go? I like the Half Acre. Let's go with the old school hat.
Yeah, I like it. I remember when we got those in stock. It's one of those things where, I think people have gotten more and more entitled to their swag. You can't just show up with stickers, right? You can't just show up to a tap takeover at Crafted and just show up with like 20 stickers. People who came there to spend their money and drink the beer are going to be like, hey, what do you got in the back? Like, come on, give me the good stuff.
Keep that pint. I want to keep that pint.
I want the glass. I want the sticker. But can I also get a hat? Can I also get a shirt? Can I get a koozie? Whatever.
Mari definitely gave me this at Crafted when I was working there. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I know, she's great.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure she hated me, but she was always great.
I wonder if she got laid off when I got laid off.
Oh yeah, around the same time.
Probably, yeah.
You know what? I bet she did, because I remember I was still at Crafted when it happened, and I feel like either they stopped sending people to me, altogether, or somebody else would like get in contact with me.
Sure,
it'd be like Travis or something from Windy, maybe.
Sure,
yeah. Magical times.
I know. Yeah, they sure were.
It led us to one another, though.
I know. Now here we are. Yeah, So I worked at So, long story short,
we don't do that here. I'm gonna need the whole thing. I want to know I'm pretty sure I've asked you and we've talked about it, but what drew you there? I mean, I'm sure in Miami at some point you probably told me. Doral.
Yeah,
Doral, Florida.
One of my last cheeseburgers I've consumed was there.
Insane. That was the best.
So here's how it went. Do you really want the long version?
Yeah, no, I want to know like what even, so let's see. Where are we at right now? If you were there till what, 2020?
Yep. Okay. March 2020.
So 9 years before 2020, you were so 11 basically.
I'll go back. I'm going to go way back.
Where were you at 09, at 10? Like, how are you feeling about? Were you into craft beer heavily? Like,
I'm gonna. We got some time here.
Yeah, we got all the time in the world.
I'm gonna go on all of it.
So you want to take that shitty drive back home? Uh-huh.
I was if you can imagine being in rural central Illinois, being an 18, 19-year-old adult, there wasn't a lot to do, and believe it or not, I got into smoking weed.
Dude.
And this was obviously over 20 years ago. It was very much not legal.
Ditch weed, no vape pens. No.
Vape pens? What?
Barely edibles.
Yeah, right. I mean, had a few edibles of a few varieties, but so I was super into smoking weed and all that stuff, figuring out my life. And I had to quit for a job to pass a drug test. And then
as one does.
I couldn't smoke weed without getting extreme anxiety. So I stopped smoking weed, and I was always in search of that flavor. That was the part I missed the most. I didn't miss like the buzz necessarily, but I did miss the flavor. So when I found hoppy beer that tasted close-ish to pot, I was like, oh my God, here we go. So in 2010, my now wife, then girlfriend, was living with my best friend in Chicago.
Was she a burnout too?
Not at all. No, and I had been off weed for like 5 years at this point. And I'd probably had some Sierra Nevada, but
hell yeah,
that was about the extent of it. But we went on a bike ride. They lived in Lincoln Park. We biked to Paulina Meat Market and got sausages to grill. And then my friend was like, hey, we should go check out this brewery called Half Acre up the road. Whatever. There's a Jewel across the street. We'll get buns. It'll be a multi-stop.
A whole thing.
Right. Because I don't even think...
We're talking about...
Wait, Rachel was 21 at this point. Okay. But barely, my wife, barely 21. So we go in there and it smelled like weed. Just like...
Oh, wait a minute.
Instantly.
Like they're dry hopping something
or smoking pot.
I don't smoking weed.
I don't know, but
either or.
It smelled a lot like pot, and I was like, "What is going on here?" I think it was Gabriel who was working. It was him or Raj. They were like, "Here you go, try this. This is Daisy Cutter," and it blew my mind. I was like, "Oh my God, I've never had a beer that tastes like this." More likely than not, I was just tasting fresh beer for the first time in my life. But
yeah, like real kind of straight off the canning line, almost like beer,
But I was like, whoa, this is great. So I was hooked in the summer of 2010. So
at this point, it's not just the front-facing bottle shop. It's like a small tap room, right?
No, it was just the bottle shop.
It was just the bottle shop.
Yeah, it was just the bottle shop. So like every time I'd come visit Rachel and my friend, I would go to Half Acre and get Daisy Cutter.
Right.
At that time, that beer would sell out. Like cans of Daisy Cutter would sell out.
You remember when stuff like that happened?
I do. I remember it all. Like we would like seek it out. Like we would go to liquor stores and random wherever we could just to find Daisy Cutter. Yeah. But anyways, when I had like the same time I had a sociology teacher that was like, very left leaning, very like socialist driven, very much like, the workers should seize the means of production, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of got like I was like on an idealist bent at that point in my life too. And I was really interested in working at a small business and helping grow from within. So I moved to Chicago in January 2011. I didn't even move here. I was just house sitting at the time, but Half Acre posted on their social media that they needed someone to come in and clean kegs and work on the packaging line and do unglamorous work. And I just graduated from ISU with a business administration degree. Yeah. So I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect for me. So I went in and talked to Gabriel the next day, and he hired me at the end of the week. And by the time I got done house sitting, I had a full-time job lined up at Half Acre.
Did you actually start cleaning kegs and stuff?
Yeah.
Or did you do something else right away? Okay.
Cleaning kegs. Yeah. So at the time, the keg washer was like
I was going to say, what was even
Frankenstein. It was this Frankenstein, a really not great machine. So like all the reservoirs and all that stuff for like the cleaning ingredients and all that stuff worked just fine. But the motherboard that programmed like the cycles of the keg washer didn't work. So you had to manually run the cycles. So you would have to do the rinse cycle, the drain cycle, all that by hand. So you'd be flipping little like.
Not like modern technology.
Not much like this.
No, like these buttes right here, right? Like,
I mean, they looked like that. I mean, it was an ISS or ISM machine. It had the red. I've seen them at breweries, like even like in the past few weeks, but I would have to literally be flipping the
skeleton of something similar.
It was a keg washer.
It just wasn't.
It was broken, but it worked. But also the pump was super loud too. Anyways, yeah, it was not great, but I didn't care. I wanted to be part of a small company. I just knew I wanted to. I had worked at a big corporate insurance company in Central Illinois. I won't say which one.
It's the one.
You could say that.
I believe Tyson works for them.
I knew I did not want to go back to that world, but I also didn't I was so ignorant. I had no idea what was going on in Chicago. I got very lucky to be in the right place at the right time and getting my job. I also didn't want to be a brewer. And that
so probably you didn't really have any interest in you're not home brewing.
Nope.
Here, try this, dude.
No.
Try this brown ale.
No.
Freaking killed it.
I did. I eventually did start home brewing, but
of course, got to.
Yeah, I was like, they do a good job of it. I just want to work here, and that's probably what got me the job. If I'm being honest, was like I didn't want to just all of a sudden be the head brewer at Half Acre. So
at that age, at that time period. In that kind of structure coming from one, I don't want to say extreme, but it's a different world there to Chicago, right? And it's a different time frame and era than what we're used to right now. And then craft beer is still so young. It hasn't like hockey stick jet where it's just up and to the right, Once it's about there, it's starting to go. It's starting to go a little bit at that point. So it's like you just graduated with a degree from, a decent state university with business. And you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna work at this. It's only because it's a small business, or because I kind of like beer and it's a small business. Well, it seems like a cool group. What your mom and dad what you're doing? What
you think they paid for my college, bud?
I'm not saying they paid for it, but whether or not they did, right? Like would they be like,
no, I mean my
you idiot, what are you doing?
Honestly, what probably got me the job, besides not wanting to be a brewer, was I understood that it was manufacturing at its core. And I've worked in manufacturing for my whole life, really, from really 2002 till now.
What were like the OG jobs? What were like the original high school to like college jobs?
So during high school, I was a roofer and had a paper route too.
Paper route's the best.
But
roofing's got to suck. I've never done it, but I assume it's not that great. It's nice to be outside.
If you're afraid of heights, it's even more.
I bet it's terrifying.
Challenging. Yeah. I don't know, but at the time I was just like, I was just cheap labor.
And my 100 degrees outside, and you're up on that roof
for sure.
Just like that black shingle just collecting heat on you.
Yep. Well, I mean, really, it was a chance for me to hang out with my friends, and like when the girls would walk by, we would, be checking them out too, and we looked
You
cool because
whistle and say cool stuff.
I don't think we would do that, but we would just like try to look cool, even though we didn't. Because we were
must
like
have sucked at your job. You weren't demeaning women while you were working.
Yeah, that was.
You were bad at this.
I was then, and maybe still am now. So I did that, and then I after the summer after I graduated, I was like, I need to make a real job, money, salary, because I can't. Because I was like, I got to live on my own. So I worked in a cookie factory for a couple of years as I was very awesome. Deep into my weed phase of my life.
It sounds awesome. Maybe it wasn't, but
I mean, it's manufacturing. It's food manufacturing. Yeah. So you're, just like beer manufacturing, it's similar, but way more regulated with your ingredients and obviously your process of making sure the food you're packaging is safe for consumers. But not glamorous in any fashion.
Bet you look good in a hairnet though, huh?
I was in a hairnet. I was in a beard net. I was in white head to toe with slip-proof shoes.
But did you go to the Taffy Apple factory with us?
Oh yeah,
were we all there together? It was like me, you, Kylene, and everybody. Yep. Yeah,
Mac might have showed up.
Affy Tapple. That was wild.
But
that's what I thought of.
That took me there. The thing that blew my mind when I was at I probably shouldn't blow anyone's spot, but yeah, it did definitely take me back to those.
I mean, the millions of people are going to listen to this. You don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely reminded me of that. Hairnets, beard nets, all that stuff was real. But it's when you're working in a manufacturing job, first shift, second shift, third shift, there's some good and bad parts to it. You can just keep your head down, do your work, clock in, clock out, get paid good money. Like I was making decent money doing that job. So I came back to it a little bit after I went and traveled. The job I like quit smoking weed to get, which was like, not illustrious at all. But when I quit that and went back to living in Central Illinois for a little while, I went back to that and I was like, man, you can make decent money doing this work. It's not too bad. But then I worked at like Caterpillar and Pontiac for a little while doing assembly line work.
Okay.
And then eventually my ex-girlfriend, her mom was like, so you want to date my daughter? Have you thought about going to college? And I was like, no, I'm not really into that. She's like, well, if you want to keep dating my daughter, maybe you should go to college. I was like, okay,
totally.
You're right. Maybe I should. So that's what made me like, that was like a scared straight moment.
That rang you a little bit.
Yeah.
Resonated.
Right.
All right. Maybe I should try this college thing.
And that's when I tried working in the insurance world, and that wasn't for me.
Were you hanging out at the Bone Center? Wasn't that the
I saw some
ISU Bone Center?
I saw Method Man and Redman play there in probably 2000, 2001.
When I went to visit, I visited there in 01 or 02, to see if I wanted to go to school there.
Yep.
And the big artist that was coming like that month was Travis Tritt. Trouble.
Sure.
Dude, how he was massive back in the 90s, 80s and 90s.
I think Smashing Pumpkins played there when I was there.
Legit.
I later in life. So there's two like they're literally a
sure it wasn't Zwan
block away.
It's probably Zwan. It was probably Zwan. It was probably Zwan.
I found out very later in life, like a few years ago, that the Grateful Dead actually played a show at the. I think it was called Horton Fieldhouse at the time, but they played a show at ISU's like where they play basketball games and stuff.
Jesus.
Who would have thought?
Long before John Mayer came along.
A little bit, yeah. I don't even know if he was alive at that point.
No, he might not have been.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. ISU, I love Central Illinois. I obviously most of my family's still there, and there's like good breweries there. You mentioned White Oak,
crazy good.
Distill. Crushing it,
dude. That's where we started. We went and ate at Distill to start the day.
Yep.
So we drove up, got there at like 11:30. Mm-hmm. Everybody met up, went to Distill. Food was outstanding. The place it doesn't make sense when you walk up to it. You're like, what the fuck did they do to get all this money? Like, it's so crazy. And it's like very nice. It's a
big spot.
It's not like where I'm like kind of bummed out about it because it's like a little too corporate or something. Yep. I mean, there's money there. There's a lot of money there.
Yep.
But it was a very comfortable place to hang out with a bunch of beer people and talk shit. And the beer wasn't bad, and drinking Grateful Dead themed IPAs. And the food was awesome. Like the I had a buffalo chicken sandwich or something that was insanely good.
Yep.
Like everything there, top notch. And then we rolled right over to White Oak, and it was just like, oh, you feel like you're at your buddy's basement, just hanging out, just raging, having a good time.
Were you at Phase 3 when and I think it was January 2022-ish?
I would have been there
when
January 2022.
I think that's when Side Project did their invitational.
Yeah, you went.
I went.
Who'd you go with? Johnsky go with you?
I piggybacked with Sean and Evan because they specifically asked for owners to be there.
Where did Johnsky? Johnsky went to Brooklyn or something for us at one point.
So it might have been the same weekend. Yeah. He was at Green City,
and
I think he might have like struck up a friendship with like some like people.
That was
like
Blackstack or something.
Maybe
yeah. Is that where Blackstack was?
Might
born?
have been. Might have been.
Murph. What was his name that used to come visit?
Yeah. Murph. Yeah. I'm gonna go see him next week.
Love that guy.
Excited about
wild dude.
He's a great guy.
Yep.
I like him a lot. Anyways, I remember when we drove down with Elmer from Omnipollo.
And if you're listening to this, you're not into beer. Side Project, very prestigious, small brewery run by the guy who basically is what? I mean, what would you compare him to in life stuff? Corey's, I don't want to say the Michael Jordan of beer. He's got a lot of clout in the in the game.
Yeah. Yep.
And for doing it the right way, I would say probably like doing it very classy, very integrity forward beer. I think it would be a good way to describe that reputation. So as a brewery like Phase 3 was, only a couple of years old at the time, to get that invite is kind of a big deal.
Yep.
And that's when your owners, Sean and Evan, are going for sure. They're going to make that appearance here. So you got to kind of piggyback off with them, and you already had relationships, right, with some people out there. You had friends out there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was plugged into the St. Louis scene just through Perennial, through like Half Acre. Like there was a lot of commonality there. And if I'm not mistaken, Corey worked at Perennial before he started Side Project.
And that's why it's called Side Project. Right.
So I was thankfully I have some good relationships with some people from St. Louis that work at Side Project, worked at Perennial, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, can I please go to this one? And they let me go, which was great.
Mom and Dad let you go.
They did,
nice.
And I rode down with them, which was wonderful too. But we stopped at Distill with the Omnipollo people, and I remember the comment that they're like, they never had fried cheese curds before, right? So like, man, you guys get the fried cheese curds.
Just do it.
We get the free education and healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's one or the other, but
yep. No, they don't go hand in hand. I'll tell you that much.
You can't have that much.
Then
freedom.
I guess Canada does have poutine. I mean,
sure.
I don't know. It's close.
I know.
So it's in that ballpark.
I mean, it's not fried cheese, but you get the idea.
Cheese, you're right, but you get the idea. They're trying. They're trying. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a hell of an event to go attend. I mean, and that was really cool about what we did there with Phase 3 and working for, at the time, a very small company, and not that they're huge now, but it's about 8 times bigger set of employees now, and 2 facilities at this point. So things have changed a ton in just a short amount of time. So but we were really blessed to be able to kind of just like pick up these. You and I get to just go to Miami for a couple of days for Juicy Beer Fest or whatever it was. Tripping Animals boys. They take us to a Dolphins game. Like
that was awesome.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
we were definitely not leaving early. We were like, fuck it, we're going to this game.
Are you kidding me?
Both sports fans, like not always like prevalent in craft beer, like when you're hardcore craft beer guys, not always like a huge sports scene. There's plenty, but
Yeah.
So you and I always bonded with sports and that kind of shit.
I feel like it was also the first time that they did the 17th game in the NFL season.
Yeah.
So it was like the fact that there was a game after New Year's was like, you want me to go to an outdoor football game in January?
Yeah.
And I can just show up in a t-shirt. Like, why would I not go to that?
T-shirt, and we were from Illinois.
Yeah, it was. I remember it was like -20 when we left, and it was like 80 there.
It was so
like
cool.
100-degree change.
It doesn't happen often for me. Like I've been on vacations before, but usually it's like, the day you left, it was already 50 in Illinois or something. So it's like the 80's not blowing your mind. This was the most opportune.
I also remember we like got to the hotel. We were early because we were like, let's get the heck out of Chicagoland. And we get there, and I was like, oh yeah, those guys work at a brewery. And we like went up to them and was like, what's up, dudes? They're like, hey.
Yeah.
I was like, what? we're doing this. We're gonna act like cooler than you. Like this is so stupid.
So
it's like, and then we
all right, never mind.
It's like, when does Pete get here so we can hang out with Barntown
we
people?
we took a crap. Well, that was nice that we did. Yeah, that was good that we ran into Pete. I think that made that first. That's the first night we were there.
Yep.
We were, yeah.
Yep.
That made that much more fun to go walk around. And I remember that was like right after like Alex and him had had their tift, at Barntown. We talked a little bit.
All right.
Because I had talked to Alex, and then it was good to be able to spend time with Pete and hear like, oh, okay, so you guys both had your own shit.
Sure.
And then we end up at that little. What was that place? There was like that unbranded or something or branded brewing that was like really fancy looking.
And the one where
they had the wrestling
thing? Yeah.
And then right by it was that Santa something. That was the place that we went to. And they had like a Harry Potter theme thing going on. And they had the guy that smashed the burgers right outside.
Right.
And that was just like crazy.
Yeah.
Like you had to fucking box people out to get a burger off of that.
Yeah,
they were like free for the brewers. They did a good job of like trying to treat us.
They also fed us so much booze, alcohol, beer, etc.
No,
but not a lot of food.
No. Well, remember they did the pig? They did like the whole pig.
Yeah,
you had to like wait around the table and like it was like fucking Black Friday shopping in the '90s for Tickle Me Elmo. I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
Everything was too hot. You had to wait.
Yeah.
It's an interesting mix out there. I love Tripping Animals though. I thought that was cool. I thought they were cool guys. Like they were really welcoming. Thought the fest was fine, I remember.
Do you remember showing up with a mask on? Do you remember? Because we walked in. This was.
Oh yeah. I thought you were. I'm like, wait,
ladies and gentlemen,
like a funny mask. This was during the time.
I want you to know that Joe and I went on this trip.
Yeah, we.
Which
like
camera am I looking at? Doesn't matter.
Here.
Which one do we look at?
That's you.
Listen.
That's you right here.
If you can imagine 4 years ago, January 2020, you got two jagoffs from Chicagoland going to Florida. We were kind of told in no specific terms, you go to this trip, but you cannot get sick. You cannot bring illness back into this brewery. We cannot have a shutdown because of COVID. We can't have an outbreak here because you guys want to go fuck off in Florida.
Yep.
They didn't say that, but it was implied. Joe and I show up. We've got our masks on. We're being good little boys. We wore masks at the brewery all the time.
I tried. I gave up eventually, but I was very good for a while.
We walk in to Tripping Animals tap room, okay, in Florida, right? And it was like
Doral.
It was like the scene in the movies where the record just goes. Everyone like stops and looks at us as we walk in the door wearing masks, and it's just like unspoken. Take that fucking mask off now. To where I was just like, okay, because I remember
it was at that point where we were like, we weren't sure what was actually, we just were like trying to follow the rules and like trying to stay healthy and not, like not step out. We're representing a company that we like and people that we like,
and we're grateful to be there. But I remember, I can't remember if it was there or if it was shortly thereafter. We like walk up to the bar, and I remember someone like turns. No, actually, I was pouring at a beer fest. Might have been the next day. It doesn't matter. No, it was at the fest the next day.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of things that happened at the fest.
He goes, you can take that thing off. We're not going to get you sick.
That's it. Who was that? It was like was it the dude from Other Half? Remember, he like travels all over the place for Other Half.
Oh really?
Yeah, he was interesting. He's like one of those like kind of retired guys that just like doing it for fun.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
He was kind of jacked.
Yeah,
he was a little bit ripped.
He was like based in Florida, and he's like, yeah, I'm just like the ambassador who pours for us in Florida.
But he goes to New York all the time, like to hang out there.
Yeah.
Like it sounded like he had quite a fun little deal with them. But anyways, I remember that. I know by like the middle of that fest, I had my chin under my mask under my chin. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. We're outside. I think I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember what was old boy's name that we partied with from Osner? Remember him?
John.
He had the fucking hat. He had the best.
John.
He had the drip. Now kids would call that
John Childress.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's wrestling event though.
I think John's about to have a kid.
Really? Good.
Yeah, it was just his birthday. I love John.
My man, he was such a good time.
Great guy.
He was just positivity all over the
love
place.
Love him so much.
He's one of those guys that born for sales. Born to sell stuff.
I think so. He might be back in sales doing something.
Yeah.
I love him. I was just texting him the other day 'cause it was his birthday, and
remember he had like the old NASCAR like vintage shirts that he'd get off eBay for like too much money.
Yep. Yeah. If you're gonna show up to a beer fest, you want to look good.
He had like the Pharrell hat, like going on, basically denim tops. Like he was great. He was too much fun. Well, it was good, but being by him for wrestling because that show was actually so legit. Like it was so good.
Yeah,
it was like East Carolina Wrestling Federation.
It was
or some
CCW.
Yeah, Coastal something.
Right? Coastal Wrestling.
They were so good. Like,
you know what I learned? I think so Gangrel, the wrestler in the late 90s, early 2000s who had the fangs, who led the Brood, he is like the main guy at that.
He runs that territory
at that promotion.
Okay, no shit.
So yeah, he's like the CCW guy. Gives them the credit.
I'm back into it. I'm watching the professional stuff now again.
Sure.
I hadn't watched in years, dude.
Yeah.
Now I'm watching on Netflix all of a sudden. And,
sure.
My brother's really into it again.
That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, I think I watch McAfee a lot, so he's part of it. So I'm like, all right, I'll watch it. I'll check this out. I'm buying in a little bit more.
Did you watch the Royal Rumble this weekend?
Yeah, I watched it.
It was fun.
When you throw it on Peacock, somebody's got Peacock.
Also, the Royal Rumble, I think, is the event, the wrestling show you can watch if you know nothing about
and you catch some storylines. You catch some during it because when they come in, they try to like recap for you. So you're like, oh, I could just caught up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So me and my friends and I, some of my coworkers that, you mentioned softball, like the people I used to play softball with, still play softball with, people I used to work with, whatever.
Still crazy that you do that.
13 years later, we still watch. We started the Royal Rumble. We figured it out last weekend. We've been doing it since 2012. We've been getting together and watching the Royal Rumble.
That's fucking sick. I love that.
It's great.
I love that. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back into it. All of a sudden, I mean, my wife's like, this is the dumbest thing you've ever put on in front of me. I'm like,
sure.
I know, but I have to. I feel like I need to watch. JJ likes it too.
Sure.
I put it on. JJ's ready. 3 years old.
Yep.
He's already like, let's put that Rumble thing back on again. That was pretty sweet, Dad. Yeah, I know I'm bouncing all over the place. Our time, I guess I was going through your timeline of like work and all that, but I do want to get back to the Half Acre to what could spark a love and a friendship so hard that you're still playing softball together. Like, I mean, talk a little bit about like that transition because I mean you saw it from selling out Daisy Cutter. It's still fairly new to basically every fucking bar in the world, and the state has Daisy Cutter available to you in some form. So you kind of saw all of it, the ins, the outs. You eventually were like, I remember like we were doing events, like not washing kegs, obviously. So how'd you progress from like washing kegs and that odd job stuff?
Yeah. So early on, it was just such a small, tight knit crew. And for the first like 3 or 4 months, I was just like trying to stay afloat, doing the work, showing up every day, drinking as much free Daisy Cutter as I possibly could. I was so happy with just that.
I got some in the garage right now if you want one. If you're just like salivating right now.
I mean, honestly, that sounds awesome to me.
I love Daisy Cutter. And I got some Anti-Hero in the garage right now. So.
I'd probably lean more towards Daisy Cutter, but
that's fair. That's fair.
So anyways, I soon thereafter, probably 3, 4, 5 months in, they started being like, "Hey man, you start paying these student loans back, bud. You took them out. We need to." And I was,
"Hey, we're gonna need that money."
Yeah,
okay?
and
super nice at first.
Yeah, it sounds great, but then when they start needing that's a challenge. So, any opportunity to go and get a free meal or a free beer, I took it. So anytime we were doing like a beer dinner or a tap takeover or whatever, I would show up because I was fucking broke and I was trying to live in Chicago and also like live off of a pretty gnarly low wage, which wasn't, that was just really common. And I'd say it's still fairly common, unfortunately, in like the entry level part of the segment. When you don't have a tap room and you don't have a way to like, earn tips and all that kind of stuff, you're kind of making the lowest wage in the industry, unfortunately. I would just show up to any event that I could to try to get a free meal and realize like,
like figure out how to work the system a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I do work for them.
So like I'd go to, 2011 Stout Fest at Goose Island. I'm showing up to that just because I know I can like, not even get paid overtime at that specific time period. But I was like just trying to go out to anything that I could to just be present and get to know more people. So when beer fest season would roll around, Chicago Craft Beer Week at the time was like a big deal. Mm-hmm. I just started like slowly getting more and more involved in that side of things, but simultaneously at that time, there were almost no breweries in Chicagoland. Revolution was just a brew pub. Wow. Metropolitan was only selling beer through distribution. There was brew pubs like Peace. There was obviously like Rock Bottom as well. You had Three Floyds and Two Brothers in Chicagoland-ish. And that was about it, honestly. Like
you big, just real quick side note. You Peace guy? You like
love Peace?
Me too.
Oh my God.
Big fan.
Love it.
Big fan.
Love their beer. Love their food.
Like the strong arm. Is that they have one they win all
Strong Arm's one.
Like a Kolsch or something.
Yep.
It's just like super popular.
Or no, Golden Arm.
Golden or something. Something in that ballpark.
Why do I not know?
And the pizza's incredible.
Love the pizza.
Like all the different ones. Anyway, sorry. I was
talking to someone about this today because this is important. I think this matters. If you are someone who is coming to Chicago, you're my aunt, my uncle, my in-laws, my parents, whoever, I know I can take you to Peace, and I know that I'm going to have a great time.
I'm just going to put them up there just in case anybody's watching this and they're like, I never heard of Peace Pizza, which you should have. But
there's no pretension there. There's great beer. There's great food. And you can be a person who just wants to have dinner. You can be a person who just wants to have drinks. You can be a person who wants to go out with a group of people that are into craft beer. Peace covers everyone, top to bottom in the beer world.
They have a Wiener Circle pizza right now, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on now.
So I love Peace. I love the food.
Look at that stat: 28 medals, World Beer Cup and Great American Beer Festival.
Right. Yeah,
that's pretty wild.
That has to be more than anyone else.
I think it's what it says. Our beers have won 28 medals.
Yeah,
the most award-winning brew pub in Chicago.
I mean, probably the most award-winning brewery in Chicago. I know crazy. Like Two Brothers won for a long time with what's that one beer? Domaine DePage, right? But it's so hard to win these competitions.
These are so good, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. That just got me super hungry now, thinking about how amazing those pizzas are. They have like one with like mashed potatoes on top of it.
Love that one.
It's fucking insane.
The white pizza with mashed potatoes. Yeah. So good.
Incredible. Anyways, you were kind of going.
So it's insane to think that there were like all these cities in America where there was a very mature beer scene.
Yeah.
Denver at the time had one. Philadelphia had one.
California, even like San Diego area, even.
Absolutely.
Had like a nice young, like Stone probably had a lot of that to Stone.
100%. But Chicago didn't. So Chicago was way behind the times in that respect.
Even Florida, I think there was even like Florida, I guess, came out a little bit stronger.
Like
later.
Tampa, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. But Chicago was behind the times. So, getting just the overall drinking community up to speed with craft beer was a thing. So long story short, maybe my wife would say long story long.
Do that here.
It was like you weren't going out and trying to convince people to drink your brewery. You're going out trying to convince people to drink craft beer overall,
or just like a weird stigma almost.
Yeah. Hey, what do you mean pay a little bit more for this?
Yeah.
Why do I got to pay more from this guy?
You get a pint of my old style for nothing.
So it was so much time was spent on that, and like when a brewery like a Pipeworks or a Spiteful would come online. Number one, you would meet these people way before they were open because they would come to Half Acre to to one of the 3 breweries in town.
How are you doing market research?
Right.
You know,
how do you guys how do you sell beer? But like, what do you mean a GoFundMe or what was it? No,
Kickstarter, dude. Kickstarter. Everybody was Kickstarter some shit.
Yeah, it was like, but like it was all taken off and maturing and growing at such a rapid pace that we couldn't keep up with demand no matter what we did. There were days where like me and my coworkers would spend, 12 hours draining 60 barrel tanks of cans and then, a 30 barrel of kegs. And we'd send it to the distributor and be like, oh my gosh, our hard work is going to keep Chicago satiated on pale ale for such a long time.
5.5% pale ale coming at you.
2 days later, we'd get the inventory report back. Be like, yeah, well, we're out of daisy cutter. Are you serious?
Wait,
we don't have any more. And this is before our tap room too. So at the time it was like unique because if you wanted to drink the beer, you had to do it outside of our four walls, essentially.
Yeah. No way to welcome your fan base in.
Right. But I started getting like dipping my toes into like the beer fest part, the events part, and like, helping out in the tap room when I could, helping out on tours when or not the tap room, the tasting room when I could, the tours when I could. And, when we were getting ready we had completely like from 2009 to 2013, we went from a brewery that was making about 2,000 barrels of beer to 15,000 barrels of beer.
Holy shit.
And we were completely maxed out in the physical space. We had filled it with fermenters. It looks nothing like like what Hop Butcher looks like in that space now.
Yeah.
It's nothing compared to what we looked like then. There was there was a guy who used to have a really awesome website called brewboca.com. And I remember he came in and like did a whole photo shoot there. And he was like, I can't believe you guys make this much beer in this little space. Like in less than 10,000 square foot of space, we were making so much beer.
No.
Is his website down now?
Maybe.
That was
I don't even know if I spelled it right.
I remember he like did a really good job of capturing what the space looked like at that time. It was just,
it's not Brew Baca, is it?
It was Bokeh. His website might, because I think he went to like tiki stuff and,
okay.
It might be.
Oh, look at that! Look at 2013.
Yeah,
turning the camera on Brew Boca.
Yeah,
it's good beer hunting.
This was 100 years ago that this was all a thing, but he did a really good job, I thought, of. Let me see if I can find it while we're sitting here.
No worries, bruh. No worries.
He did a good job of capturing what the space looked like at that point in time. Blah blah blah.
Just like, wow, how could anyone ever function in this space?
Right.
Like, yeah, well, that's funny.
Unfortunately,
all those years later, Jude and the boys come along and take over their favorite brewery's original spot, and like you're saying, like even now with the popularities that they've reached and the scene being as big as it is now currently, and they're not even maxing the place out the way that Half Acre had to max that place out.
Yeah,
just in 2011, whatever time. Do you remember like seminal moments in that journey there, like days where you were like, not days, but like, as you see it, you have a kid or a dog or something, it's there with you every day, so you don't notice it growing, but then like your friend comes over, hasn't been over in 3 weeks, like shit grew up like that overnight.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel the same way about jobs like that, or like we went through this really condensed version of that with Phase 3, from when I was hired on, there was 3 of us basically getting paid money, to work there basically, outside of just friends coming in to help out when they could, to now I believe they have 70 plus employees, know, and we saw such a, from this many fermenters distribution only to boom, like now we're doing tap room distribution. Now they have a restaurant, in the second location. They're tank after tank after tank after tank, and here's some lagering tanks, sideways ones. Check this out.
I remember getting those.
We watched that within like 2 years happen. Imagine 9 years at a company, and in the middle of those 9 years, craft beer was the biggest commodity, like in the city, in the Chicagoland area. It's just everything, I always say up and to the right, that hockey stick, graph of everything just blowing up. So what did you remember? Do you remember certain things or like times or days where there was markers in your head like, oh my God, this isn't the same as the day I started here? Like,
no, I don't remember anything.
I was high.
No, there's like a lot of little moments. I remember some that like really jump into mind just thinking about like kind of the first few years I was there. Chicago Craft Beer Week was always like a really big deal and always like something I can remember because it was like always around Memorial Day. Now it's called like Illinois Craft Beer Week, and it's a little bit different. But the first or second year I was there, we did a big event called the Sands that I didn't have anything to do with planning, but I remember we were out at Montrose Beach at a restaurant that's still there called The Dock at Montrose Beach, and we rented the space out, and Gabriel did a really good job of like, getting all these different parts into the event to make it unique. So we brought in a bunch of beer, probably legally to serve. It wasn't ours. And but it was like, you're out on the beach. It's summertime in Chicago. You've got a beautiful view of the skyline downtown. I remember having some friends up to be like, hey guys, look what I'm a part of now. And it was 2012. I remember just like standing on the beach.
Lord. I was like just getting into craft beer then. That was like Lagunitas was hitting me, and this
was when like we would do tickets on sale, in person only, out of the garage door or out of the tasting room door, and it was first come first serve. And people would show up and buy them because Half Acre had such a good reputation of like throwing these really crazy, fun, elaborate parties. But I remember like standing out on the beach, smoking a cig, looking at this party going on in one like part of my vision, and the other part was just the skyline of downtown Chicago. And I was like, what am I a part of right now? This is such a beautiful, cool, unique experience. I'm really grateful for this. And I remember like that moment of being like, what part of me was like really proud. The other part of me was like, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Oh dude, this sucks. Look at this. I think is what you were looking for.
Yeah.
And the link doesn't
man.
Watch, it takes us to like some bullshit,
man. Well, I mean, but
a bummer.
But even go back
to
that.
Thinking, I got it.
Go back to that picture. So like, we added. I don't think we added. So
because that's the cooler right there. 1, 2. I see with the tap handles on it.
That's 4. I feel like we had 6 or 7 of those. I mean, I think Half Acre still has some of those. Actually, where some of those 60 barrel fermenters that are in that photo are at Alter Brewing.
Those almost don't even look like 60 barrel fermenters. They
I know.
Almost look small.
I know.
I don't know how. Yeah, I guess
in the space, and that's where that photo is like really unique. So behind that, where those tanks are, that's where the taproom is now, and still is and was. But before it was our taproom, it was a chiropractor's office. And if you're is this photo on the screen right now? Like if someone's watching this, they can see that.
Watching it right now.
So to the right of where the cooler is, Zadar Nights.
Yeah. Amazing. How about that? I was going to say, any of those names hit you in a funny way?
What is that? A Saison? I can't even see it.
Happy Wheat Golden and a Saison. Yeah.
That's okay. Well, Akari Shogun, I had actually like helped very small formulate that beer, but to the right of that, that's where we used to have our stereo, and the canning line was like to the left. So the speakers would be hit like literally facing that blue wall. So when there was a point in time where that's where a chiropractor's office was. So we'd be just like blasting,
Savages.
Black Sabbath or
savages.
LC Sound System or whatever, and the chiropractor's be like, "Hey, I have a patient coming in like 5 minutes. Can you guys like maybe turn the music down?" And we didn't even think anything of it. We were just like, "Yeah, sorry,
shut up and have some beer, bud."
But then we bought, I say we. They bought the building, and we're like, we're going to build a tap room here. The chiropractor moved down the street, and we just like gutted that room, and now it looks almost exactly the same as it did in 2013. We did some parties in that space, and it was all really cool.
This one right
so that I think does the best job of illustrating like how full to the brim that space was. So like where all those
going out the back of the building then?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So where all those tanks are now, that's where the canning line on the right, that's where the canning line was when I worked there. And on the left, that's where the horizontal 45 barrel fermenters were. And we
60 barrel brights.
And now it was 60 barrel brights, and the canning line is actually behind that. But that, long story short, again, not short, but all I was really just trying to illustrate with this concept is like that space was full. Yeah. You couldn't.
It's not a big space either.
We built racks like above where those tanks were just to be able to store like empty cases. Like it was just like maximizing it was just a big, massive game of industrial Tetris. trying to make as much beer as we possibly could. And eventually I became like the sales rep that was going out, and like, I remember my training was like, it's like, man, I don't know how to sell. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, oh, just go make friends.
Schmooze.
It's like, what do you mean? Like, what, you're going to pay me to go out and
I'm
do
a
that?
salesman. I need to sell people
Right.
to do, like, you have to sell them the beer. Like, no, you don't get it. Like,
In my mind though, as someone who had never done sales a day in my life, and all of a sudden they're like, Eric, we're going to have you go do this. You've been here for 2.5 years. What you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to tell the story of Half Acre. And eventually that's going to lead to sales when we open up our second location. And that, I mean, honestly, that was kind of a great sales training. That's all I ever did.
I mean, I had 2018, I think I sat down with Gabriel and did like a 2-hour podcast similar to this in the new space and Balmoral space. And I think you probably have gathered this about me over the time we've known each other. Like, I'm a little bit easier to impress, I think, with certain things, and I get very excited. Like, I pedestalize people. I'm like, here's a pedestal. I just put you on it because I fucking love everything that you're doing or talking about. I got that feeling a lot with Gabriel. I mean, I don't know him that well. I didn't work for him for 9 years. I've heard nothing but great things. The Brewers Guild, even Katie was on recently, Kate Carrier, and she was talking about how much of a blessing he is. Like, when she sees him at FOBAB, he's like a good center for her to like calm down, and take him. He's always concerned about how she's doing, all that. So I was always really impressed with him. I always looked at him as like hustle and grit, and I love the fact that he had all these crazy other hobbies, like woodwork and you guys were running like a fucking wood shop or something out of there too, weren't you? Like
for a long time that was like
blowing glass, man.
So his background was like blowing, but he's like a really interesting person in beer in my opinion, because I think he has a really good vision. I think he has a really good idea and understanding of what Half Acre is overall. But also he, kind of looks at it, maybe not anymore, or maybe less. I don't want to say not anymore, but maybe to a lesser extent. I think he's always looked at Half Acre as an art project, where you're creating a beer, but you're also doing all these other things. And I think he looked at Half Acre as a brand and like an part art project.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Not the main thing. Not like the main thing.
I would say just like, it's not in the way that most people would treat, what eventually became like a massive like regional brewery. I don't know that they ever had that intention, but I think they kind of just had to capitalize on that. Again, like they were a way out of the game in Chicago because they had lived out in Philly and in Denver beforehand. I'm not breaking any news here in that respect, but I think they saw that was like a massive hole in the Chicago landscape, and they took advantage of that, and it grew not out of ambition to have a big massive business, but out of kind of necessity to feed the demand for a very long time. We were like being chased by our demand rather than like trying to create sales in that respect.
And I'd hate to say like everybody, but there was a moment in beer where not everybody was able to do that, but there was more of that happening where it was like you couldn't keep it on the shelves, like a Zombie Dust or a Daisy
for a long time,
or, like these brands, and then these smaller breweries that gained popularity. Obviously, ton of credit to like social media and stuff for getting people excited about these things, all the way down to like Corridor. Corridor make 50 cases of juice, Cosmic Juice Box or OG Squeeze It, and if you didn't know somebody that lived right there, you're not going to get it. Like you're just going to have to hope.
I remember we were going on a camping trip one time, and I had texted Brant I was like, I might have, because we sold beer to them for a long time at not at Corridor, but at Dry Hop. We used to like do events there and stuff. And I remember I was like, hey man, I'm heading out of town. He's like, oh, we're getting ready to package some Squeeze It. You should come grab it. And I remember that was one of those first like hazy beers.
I mean, it blew my mind the first time I had it, to be honest. And it was like fresh as shit. And it was just like, what is this? I think somebody brought a crowler or something of it into Iron and Glass or something, 2016. Just like blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this again? I was just getting like, I think the Cloud series maybe was in existence that Hailstorm did, like the Cumulus and all those, and then maybe the first gummies from Noon Whistle, and Mike Palin was doing his stuff, but it was like so underground almost, 2015. Secret Sauce and like Check 1, 2 and Hazies are starting to become something.
It's wild to see him talking about the 10-year anniversary of like all these beers and all this stuff, and I'm like, I think that is where the industry, at least in my opinion, that's where everything changed in the industry. It was like 2015. I think that's when things started to get close to the peak. And I think 2018, 19, the numbers would probably say that's the real peak. But I think that the change in momentum and people's buying habits and what was really popular, that really started around that time.
Buying habits were insane. Like
for better
the way
or worse.
People approached the day-to-day, it's just, I think a lot of the time frame is getting blurry for me. It was a very exciting time in beer when all this stuff started getting like hazy and stuff, because I wasn't even in it yet. I was I was into beer, but I didn't work in it or anything. Yep. I was just an outsider. I was just a dorky, wearing a polo because I was working from home, at noon at Workforce or something on a Friday.
Were you a guy who would line up for beer releases?
Yeah, definitely did it. Oh, look at that. See, I sent it. You can come on in. That's my beautiful wife, Shannon. I asked her if she had a chance to slide us over a couple of beers. You're really avoiding the camera that much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, just saw your hair. Now everybody knows your hair. Thanks, Shannon. Love you. Yeah.
Let's check the dates on this.
Well, okay. So here, I hate to be the, make it about me, but
please.
I bought these right before New Year's Day, for New Year's Eve.
Yep.
And I was like, a month, I can live with that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then I went full dry January, and so I tried to get a buddy of mine. I was like, come take this 12-pack, please. I was like, I only drank like 2 of them. I don't want them to go.
Sure.
I was like, I might not drink them after 2 months. I'm that guy, but Half Acre's quality
I bet these are great.
Yeah, I think they're going to be.
Guess that this
I think
is
we're going to be in
beer.
good shape. Here, we'll do some. Not that a Half Acre needs my advertising. Here you go. Boom. How about that? I love this beer. Regardless.
Me too. That's why I'm literally why I'm sitting in this room right now is because of this beer.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So you're not going to hear me say an ill word about any brewery really, but this any beer, and this beer specifically. Like I would never say anything bad about it.
Yeah.
But back in my day, used to be in these taller cans.
Back in the old days,
they were 16
They're
ounces.
still out there. They're still out there. Well, that's the thing. That's like my whole, transition, or not my transition, more like my journey, of evolution and path in beer has, full circled to now I am the grocery store dad we used to talk about. Like I would scoff. I would never, be like, oh, I go to Mariano's and get beer,
Sure.
Now it's like, it's a fight for which one of my 3 beers is going to have the soonest or the nicest date on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
It's like Revolution, Daisy Cutter, and then there's maybe a Zombie Dust or something else I'm looking for.
Yep.
That has to be within a month. Maybe 2 weeks would be great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, that was the number one thing I learned when like the first oh shit COVID moment was, I need to go buy beer. Like after I got laid off, I was like, oh my God, I have to go buy beer for the first time in almost 10 years. What am I going to buy? And I went and bought literally Allagash White and Bell's Two Hearted. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a flagship guy.
You weirdo.
And I think since then I've been like, oh yeah, man, like Moon Man, these beers that are like the staples of any place that they get sold. That's kind of what I like.
100%. Because there's a reason why they got to that level.
Exactly. And the brewers are going to try really hard.
Ubiquity,
And the brewers are going to try really hard to make it taste the same, batch to batch to batch.
Yeah.
So
So not like, and you know what, I'm saying this in jest because I absolutely still do love pixel density, but the hilariousness of just being able to brew it the same way twice was it's just, and goes across the board for every brewery.
Yeah.
Like how?
That's hard.
Batch 6%, then it's 7%.
Yeah.
It's 6.5%.
It's hard.
It's like, it's impossible. I mean, the general flavors are usually there, and the color and the structure, and you're constantly tweaking, especially even a flagship like that. You're constantly tweaking. You're dealing with a supply chain. You're dealing with crops of hops and over years and time.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. I don't want to dive off the hop board yet, because I want to keep talking through a little bit more about that. But that just kind of was always a funny thing, It's like these are so consistent, like these.
Well, now it is,
These daisy cutters and all that, but yeah, exactly. It has the same origin story, I'm sure.
Well, I remember, again, to your point, you don't want to get into the hop world, but I'll be honest, most beers have hops in them. I'd say almost all of them do.
I just didn't want to turn the page yet to your world and your T-shirt.
A long time ago, there was something, and it's kind of ebbed and flowed over time, but there was like a hop shortage for a very long time because as this, it's not like you can just snap your finger. This is probably way too into the weeds and no one gives a shit, but
people love it.
You can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden have more raw materials to make these beers as this explosive growth is happening. Like all these other levers have to turn to be able to create these commodities and these raw materials that go into your beer, right? It's an agricultural industry. But I remember
we'll be learning a lot more about that in the near future. It sounds like, it seems to be a hot little topic that's starting to bubble.
Yes.
Tariffs and whatnot. But anyways,
yeah, exactly.
Anyways, go back to where you were going.
No, there was just, I remember that first summer when we just, no matter what we could do, we just could not keep up with supply or with demand at our like local Chicago distributor. We were getting such crappy hops, and Daisy Cutter was so fucked up and tasted nothing like the beer that I knew and loved. I was like, I felt pretty strongly I was in the top 10 Daisy Cutter consumers at that time.
Like you
in the world,
you were an expert. I
knew what that beer tasted like in its prime, so to speak. And it was so far off base because we couldn't get the hops that made it taste the way that it did. I assume that what's in it now. I have a pretty decent idea of what's in there, but at the time
they don't put it out in anything.
I don't think they
ever
do.
Talk about.
I don't think they do now.
It's like, but I'm sure somebody's shooting guesses off of Centennial, Cascade, the old Columbus Sea hops, and maybe even a modern Citra nowadays. Who knows? But
Simcoe too, I assume. But like if you couldn't get access to all those hops, like you just had to throw something in there to give it a hop expression, hop flavor. And I remember we got some like I sincerely don't know what we were using at that time. I mean, this was 15 years ago. Who knows? But it was so onion garlicky, and not in like the good, cute, dank way. It was like, this tastes like fucking spaghetti, like herbal spaghetti sauce.
Simcoe and Galaxy, we had that runs of that at times, and Mosaic even, but usually
this is way before Galaxy.
Like in a good way.
This is way before Galaxy. This is way before Mosaic. So we were just like throwing in what we could get because it was, you're just like trying to chase this. Like you couldn't plan for that. It was just like, oh shoot, all of a sudden we're making more hops than exists in the world. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to put something in there to make it taste the way that it does. But yeah, then, I mean, we didn't have like a real functioning lab and or like a sensory program until 2015, 16, if I'm being generous. Like, I don't know that there was like a full scale, like quality control from batch to batch for Daisy Cutter for a long time. So just like, well,
you just made me Miss Bennett. That's all. That's all that did.
Throw the beer in the can. Guy. Throw the beer in the can. Get it out the door to the distributor. Someone's going to consume this in 4 days. Like, doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
At that time,
I don't care.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
totally not the approach to take. But
now, no, I would say maybe be a little bit more.
You get it. Like in the situation and the timing.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, really the name of the game for this beer now is like make it taste the same year over year, batch to batch.
I can't stress to people enough who either maybe don't care or don't understand or have never just had the opportunity. Eric kind of said a little bit about that a little bit ago, but like having a beer that is fresh, a hoppy beer that is fresh like that is like such a game changer, and you will chase that flavor your rest of your life. Like you really will. Like it doesn't matter. Like and it varies. Like some might even tell you like you don't want it right off the line. You want it like 3 days, 5 days, 8 days. A week out. There's all different theories on hazies and West Coast and anything. But I have chased flavors on specific beers for a decade now, like of being like, God, I had that Ninja versus Unicorn, and it was like in that sweet spot, and I've never tasted it like that again. You know, so it's a wild thing to like think. And this is where now I think we're drinking basically like a 2-month from can date,
right?
Pale ale that's been made 1,000 million, 100 million, trillion times, and put into these cans and shipped out to grocery stores, but it still tastes great.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great beer.
It still tastes great. But I've had the version of this, and you've 100%, 1,000% have had the version of it that like would knock your socks off of your feet. Like, yeah.
I'll tell you what was really humbling moment. So part of my job now, not to skip all the way ahead, but I work for a company based in Yakima, Washington. That one of the main things we do for our customers is we do hop selection every year, where a brewer comes out and selects their lots of hops that they want to buy for the next year. And that's going to, dictate the way their beer is going to taste for the next year. But anyways, not to get into all that right now, I showed up with a fresh 12-pack of Daisy Cutter to like the pre-party event that we did with all my fellow coworkers, most of which I was
give people a visual.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm meeting most of these people for the first time.
Just rubbing hops.
In Yakima, in the Yakima area, and I brought out Daisy Cutter. I put it in the cooler, and one of my coworkers' wives opened it and drank it, and she's like, "Oh, this is like what'd she say?" She either said like, "Oh, this is like an old school pale ale," or she said, "Oh, this is like one of those classic styles." And I was like,
"I dig that."
You're right.
Old school IPA probably is like what their first instinct was.
I was just like, man, you're right. This is like a vintage flavor profile on a beer. So,
what's up, Joseph? What? Yeah, he already ate. Sorry, my son was double checking the dog ate.
I'm sure he'd let you know if he didn't.
Well, he's a very fancy boy. He gets his homemade food and
homemade.
Oh yeah.
Do you make it?
I make it every week.
Are you serious?
Every 2 weeks. Yeah. It's pretty. I've probably talked about it on this podcast more times than I need to, but it's just like brown rice and turkey and ground turkey and sweet potatoes, peas, carrots, spinach. It's very, very healthy. Old boy got up to like 124 at one point, and I was like, well, we're not doing this kibble thing anymore.
Really?
Now he's about 78. And that's over the course of a year I've been doing this. And
nice.
He gets his multivitamins and fish oil and all that stuff, and he never seen a shinier coat on a dog in my life.
That's great.
It's got to be good for his joints. It's got to be just not having all that weight on him.
Sure.
He looks great. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm very happy to talk about dogs instead of beer, honestly.
Hop rubbing, yes.
No, but it just didn't hurt my feelings.
Well, it's funny that
but someone
old
said
school.
Yeah, they said that they called this like an old school beer, and I was like, wow, you're right.
It is. I mean, now it is, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I say that a lot to people too, though, especially when I'm bartending. Like if I'm at Brothership or at Workforce, it's like, and when people, the crossover in the game is. I mean, you experienced it today. You were at Workforce, which is 12 minutes from my house, and then you were also at Brothership, which is like 35 minutes from my house.
Yep.
So even that little bit of distance, they're about 30 minutes away from each other. If you go from one to the other, it's like, people at Brothership have never even stepped foot in Workforce and vice versa.
Yep.
Brothership probably gets more notoriety in the recent times based on the fact that they live on the hazy IPA and the big fucking coconut stouts.
Yep.
And Workforce has just been tinkering away for 10 years at every historical, classic, and they also they give you a little hazy here and there. I think it was reluctant at first. I think they're embracing it a little bit more. Brando is a very pure guy. He's responsible literally for the entire beer scene in this area. It's all him and Amanda. They started out as a brew shop, all that. Their whole story's been told on podcasts of mine and others for years, but they are the best business owners that I've ever met in my life. They're outstanding people, and their beer is mostly based on West Coast IPA. It's like what they do. Yep. It's what gets their staff excited. It's what gets their customers excited. It's pretty cool. And then their barrel aged stuff's great too, without being thick motor oil.
Yep. They won best in show at Fobab.
Well, when we were talking about Peace, they have a lot of medals too.
Sure.
I'm sure Brando, if you talk World Cup, Great American Beer Festival, Fobab, he's probably over 20, medals, and a lot of gold too. So they've been able to do it in everything, historical category. Mm-hmm. Maybe they never hit like a hazy or something, but they've definitely had historical and stout and all the stuff that you kind of are proud of almost. Not that one's better than the other.
Well, I'm sure they brewed those beers because they were passionate about those styles and they cared about them. That was, forever at Half Acre. It was like, and again, we're very fortunate that this was the case, but we brewed beer that we wanted to drink.
Hell yeah.
That was it.
That was literally everybody's mission statement, vision and mission statement to those breweries that opened up, obviously before that. And then that big pop off of 2014, 15, 16.
Yep.
When, your hailstorms and all these places started just one after another. It's like now there's 100 breweries in Chicago, 123, 100, and then there's 400 in the suburbs and Chicago. And as those places started to pop up, the Noon Whistles and all these places, it was like, they all started with that vision and that mission. Even Brothership started because Kyle and Ryan wanted to be like, why can't I make a treehouse beer? Why do I have to go trade for this? Sure. How do I figure this out?
Yep.
So that was the origin story, and obviously there's tons of them on the peripherals that were like, oh, there's money here.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
That's some money we can make.
Yep.
It was gross, and a lot of those places are closing now. So
yeah, it's hard.
Sorry about it, but
no, it's hard. There was a lot of. I had a lot of respect for just forever just making beer because it was the style we wanted to make. There's so many beers that came out of just I really want to drink something that tastes like a beer I would drink out in San Diego. So let's make before you called the beer a West Coast IPA, let's make a West Coast
IPA
inspired IPA, the
American IPA.
Right. So I remember Vallejo specifically was named after a town out near San Diego called Vallejo, and it was just at the time we were getting New Zealand hops for the first time ever. So it's okay, let's use Nelson Sauvin, and let's do this based off of this part of the world, and that was it. Just cool, yeah. Easy peasy.
That's really turned into a hop that is a trigger for me now. Every time I see it, I'm I gotta buy it.
Nelson?
Yeah. And I know it's all kind of in your head sometimes, but the hops definitely do have a varietal flavor to them.
Of course.
And I think if done right, you can pick out Nelson or Simcoe or, right. all these, but Nelson has hit for me so often lately.
Yeah.
I think Jude was the first person to ever talk to me about Nelson hops. And they were doing Craniac or Cranium or whatever. Yep. And it had this almost a grapey and a musk. It was always something that it was just different than the rest. Almost had a pepper almost to it at some point.
Yeah, I get that.
And then now recently I've noticed I've been loving everything that's been hitting with Nelson on the label.
Yep.
So
it's a great hop. It's grown in New Zealand, which is far away. It's got a different growing season than we do. But it's one of the most unique ones. I think a lot of, in my opinion, if I'm going to get nerdy for a minute, I think a lot of the New Zealand ones, they just don't taste like anything else on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Waka, really, right? That's been one of the modern ones.
One of them.
That's Hop Butcher made a great big deal out of that hop specifically.
Rwaka
They really
Mania.
brought it. They really brought it to the the Chicago culture for sure. Like,
I actually had a beer at Workforce today, I think, that was Rawaka heavy, which was really nice.
Yeah.
It was either Rawaka or Rakau. I can't remember which.
I mean, the Watiti, there's all these, there's so many, they have like these names that remind you of the other one.
Yep.
And maybe they're sister cousin hops, you know, it's all botany and crossbreeding and, Citrus King right now. And probably for the last, not 10 maybe, but a lot of years.
Yeah.
Citrus been king.
Yep.
I'm guessing the boys are growing a lot of that stuff out there in the Pacific Northwest right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one hop we sell. I mean, yeah, I think so, at least. I was talking to Brothership about it today. He's like, yeah, man, it just goes into everything. It's
I
just
don't think Phase 3 or Brothership made a beer without it. I mean, if it was a hop beer, it's got some form of Citra in it.
There's a reason why. It makes beer taste good.
Yeah,
or it makes beer taste the way that people like.
The way that people like. That's good. I mean, no, it's good. I love a lot of Citra hopped, beers. I believe Zombie Dust is a predominantly Citra hop beer, isn't it? I mean, it's a pale ale. Is that real? I mean, is that really a pale ale? They always call it a pale ale.
They're an anomaly.
It's always IPA to me.
Yeah.
Just like eye test and taste test to me.
Well, I mean, think about Alpha King was way darker and way more resiny.
Malt, and a ton of resin too. But they had such a good run.
Yeah,
they were the beer that really got me into that mode of like age and dates,
right?
And like they were the first ones. They'd bottle it. I'd drive out there and get cases.
How far is it from here?
It's about 45-minute drive.
Yeah,
maybe an hour at the most.
Yeah,
and I'd see it. I had an alert set up on my Google Chrome that it would pop an alert if their to-go menu changed. It would pop an alert. So as soon as I got that alert, I check Arctic Panzer Wolf and Permanent Funeral in the bomber section, and then you get, fresh Gumball Head, fresh Zombie Dust just went up. I'm going.
Yep.
2 case limit, $40, no tax, just in and out like.
I love
crazy.
That was
I miss those days.
Dark Lord Day. The first time I went, 2011. That was like a real.
That's OG right there.
That was a real mind fuck. Because you have to understand there's so many layers to craft beer fandom, for lack of a better term, and to see the top of the pyramid at that time. That was the people who would go to something like Dark Lord Day, and they would show up.
1%ers.
The 0.1%ers.
0.01%ers.
They would show up with like all these bombers of all these barrel aged beers, and they'd have the graveyard or whatever you would call it. They would just have like some. I mean, honestly, I wish Brewbook's website was still up and live, because I know he went. He went to Dark Lord Day and did that at one point, and I think it just taking pictures. I'm like, what are all these breweries? Who are all these breweries? Who are all these people? There's 10,000 people there to drink barrel-aged stout. You're just like, what? I've never even had a barrel-aged beer before in my life. The only stout I'd had at that point in my life was Guinness. And all of a sudden you're like, what's a Russian Imperial Stout? I mean, this was...
Here's an old school.
Yeah.
This is definitely an old school one.
This is way back in the day. But seeing that kind of stuff, I'm like, at that specific time period, as I'm like making... Daisy Cutter day after day. I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I was there this year. That's Calvin right there from Spiteful.
Is it?
That's Calvin. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Look at him with hair.
Yeah, so
look at that.
When was this
2013.
From? This is 13.
That was third year I went there. So that's Calvin from Spiteful.
This is wild.
I bet you'll see some more of my old coworkers in this too.
Days, dude. Look at that.
Full. Because Calvin and I worked. That's Danny. My friend Danny. Is that Paul? I don't know if that's Paul from formerly of Solemn and now back at Solemn Oath. Might be, might not be.
It's hilarious.
And then
this was me, right?
Pride and Joy.
Yep, dude. And now they like do the remake of it. Yeah. Now, and it only comes out every so often, I think.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you see. What are these bottles?
You can look at the bottles too. Like that's not 2020. That's not 20. I see Permanent Funeral. I see is that Maloka.
No, that's the Behemoth.
Yeah, the bar.
Then you got some Cantillon. You got some Bourbon County.
Cantillon or Dre Font.
But look at all that. Yeah. This is way before even like canned.
This is probably like Supplication or a Russian River over here.
You got Probably a Heady Topper can, I would guess.
We are so inside baseball right now. I love it.
If not now, when? Keep going though, because I know we were at this. I think this was the year that one of my coworkers threw up in his backpack.
Boys, we got a cask here.
I knew. So that
we got a cask here. Is that what we're looking at?
That is Paul.
I mean, come on, look at this.
I remember the first year I went there in 2011. Someone dropped and broke a bottle of Dark Lord, and someone else got on all fours and drank the beer right off the asphalt. It was disgusting.
This is a classic site.
I love that photo.
I mean, this is a classic site.
So much diversity at these events too.
So much.
There's Mike from Delilah's.
Look at that. Who's that?
Lafleur.
That's the fucking king right there.
Lafleur.
John Lafleur.
To the left, that's really the king. If you scroll up, up above him, that's the king right there. That's Mike Miller from Delilah's. He's the OG
like
craft.
The bourbon Delilah.
That's really the king.
Yeah, God, I knew. I mean, you might even know him. I knew a guy who used to work with a guy who worked there. He passed away, Marty. But he worked at Delilah's like once or twice a week or something. But like Charlotte knows him.
Sure.
And Charlotte and I figured out years later. Charlotte and I have known each other for enough time.
Yep.
We didn't realize we knew him. We both knew him.
Okay.
And I worked with him in his corporate job, but he also worked at Delilah's. He was looked like a greaser, great guy.
Sure.
And unfortunately, he passed away like way too early.
Yep.
And it was just kind of a weird connection. But that place is,
that's an Affliction shirt. That thing would sell for like $300 now on
Dude,
eBay.
how sick is that shirt,
I know,
bro? Do you know that guy will fight you right now?
What blows my mind is that people now like buy Affliction, and it's like hype again.
It's like the NASCAR shirts that John would buy off the internet.
Absolutely.
Like the shittiest sandpaper made T-shirt.
I've got a few.
Yeah, $110.
Okay, so I want you to stop on this photo right here.
Okay, let's go.
So that doing the pushing in that photo is Calvin, who I called out earlier.
That's spiteful.
And then the guy, if you zoom in on the guy in the brown shirt, and then the guy right behind him. So those are two of my former Half Acre coworkers right there. So this guy, that's Stefan.
This guy right here.
To the left, the guy in the brown shirt, that's my old coworker Stefan, and then the guy in the hoodie behind him, that's my old coworker Nick.
Nice.
Caffrey.
Hi, Nick.
Both of them are not in beer anymore. Stefan is now a physician's assistant and is father of two, and Nick Caffrey is also a father of two. There's Calvin again in the mosh pit.
I think these are just all spiteful pictures.
To the right is that's Pig Destroyer. Mm-hmm. You weren't at the show in CBC 2021. We both got COVID there, but that's neither here nor there. Not at Dark Lord Day in 2013.
Minnesota.
Head back up there on Monday. But
I know.
This was a time in beer.
Yeah, this was a real thing that happened.
I used to go every year.
Still happens in a different way.
I went every year.
People just now people are just waiting to like offer like
no
ticket scalpers. They're like waiting to offer you for like your Hangy variant, 300, 400. I'll give you 400.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Do they still do that? Do people still pay for those?
I'm sure. I mean, maybe not that high of a price now. Maybe $200 or something. But like militia or like chemtrail or something would be,
Yep.
Anyways, we got real sidetracked on this Three Floyds thing, but I was
trying to say
it was a huge moment in my beer.
Well, I mean, they still do it, but if you think about like at that, like in the 2013 era, there were not a lot of people. I'm not just trying to make this all back in my day shit, so I'm really sorry for anyone listening who's hearing me say this stuff.
I mean, seriously, like look at that photo, like.
And what's amazing is like the reason there's a lot of open space there in that photo is like that's where all to the right of that is where all the food vendors were. To the left, that's all people. Look how packed that is on the left. That's people waiting in line to go and get like to buy a pour of Dark Lord. Yeah. Those people would wait in line for 20, 30 minutes just to get not even barely, just regular. Like what? You couldn't. What would it fucking take to get people to wait like 20 or 30 minutes in line now? Like
I'd be livid.
Maybe a side project beer right now. Like it's kind of insane to think about. Anyways, that was like a real. Every time we'd go there, those were just like, what did I get myself into moments in craft beers? Like, I'm not this person. I never like got nerdy about beer. I think because I got exposed to that part of it so early on. I was like, man, beer should be a drink of the people. It shouldn't be this commodity. It shouldn't be this whole thing. If you want to be excited about it, fine. I love that for you. But it's just not.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I'm not going to tell you how to love your team. Right. So I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do that. And it built a lot of breweries up. It helped financial windfalls for some breweries to have people that are willing to go. But then it just got gross, and not that it got gross. It's getting gross. Like bourbon is really gross. Like bourbon kind of, nobody's opening shit. Like I think in beer that's starting to clean up itself a little bit. Where it's not.
You should drink it. You should drink beer.
Not so crazy. And
what camera are we on right now?
It's just me right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, now you're back.
Hi.
Hey, here comes the real special guest.
Hi.
What's up, Jay Jarino? Nope. Don't stay right there. Don't knock that out of the wall, bud. So my 3-year-old just rolled in because he wants to learn about beer, I guess.
Hi.
Go ahead. Tell me what you're going to say.
I'm going to tell it to you. I'm going to tell it to you. Tell it to you.
Tell it to
Not
these
to
guys.
you, buddy. If you have beer in your house, drink it.
Yeah.
End of story. Like, what are you waiting on?
I think bourbon, too.
The special occasion is now. We should cherish this moment in life.
Yep. He loves podcasting, so he's just like, I'm not.
Get him on mic.
Mom's like, hey, get out of here. He's like, no, Mom.
He's okay.
Oh, you got to go eat, buddy.
Yeah,
Hold on. You're going to end up spilling all these pretzels all over the place, buddy. So can you go with Mom, please? Thank you, sir. You and Thor both. Come on. Sorry. JJ, come on. You're gonna ruin it. No, you're fine. You're so cute. Doesn't matter.
Hi, bye.
Kid rules. Kid absolutely rules. He does not care.
Good.
Anyways, yeah,
I
second and double, triple stamp what you're saying. Like, just
life is short. Let's enjoy it.
I know people are still sitting on them, but I think some people just overwhelm themselves by like there's so many grown men that had to go out and buy like real metal shelving for their basements just because they bought so many bottles and they have nothing to do with them and they're not going to drink them. So many people joined they had like 15 bottles of Black Tuesday down in their basement. Yeah. They're like, when am I going to open this? Who wants to open this with me?
Am I back on camera?
Oh yeah, you're front and center,
it's
my
me
guy.
Again. It's me again, Eric. Hi.
Yeah,
hello. I want to say, invite your friends over this weekend. Open the bottle. Make the day out of it. Have a good time. You know what? Actually, I'll give you an idea. This is something I used to do with all my coworkers 100 years ago. We used to do something once a year. We called it Stout Brunch. We would get together. Everyone would bring a dish to share, and we would bring some breakfast food, and we would bring some beer, and we would share.
Stout Brunch.
And it was called Stout Brunch. And it was like, you could bring Guinness, you could bring whatever. There's no pretension. Okay. But the idea was like, you wanted to bring bottles to share with people. So that was a really good way for me and a group of people to get together and share beers with someone else who appreciates it. I might have even still had on tap back then. This is a long.
So I hope you were checking in beers left and right.
I never rated anything for what it's worth, but
meh.
Never did that because I used to be the person who would have to respond to that.
You were the guy that was like, I don't really get into sours.
Negative on bottle caps.
2.5.
Not hazy.
They're like
enough.
writing out your rating instead because I couldn't give it a negative. So I had to write negative 2 stars on that sour. I don't really like acidic things.
And if you want to talk about the real back in the day stuff, like before Untappd was Beer Advocate and Rate Beer, you would have to write out like a real review of beer. It was a fucking nightmare. It's again to your point. It's you don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but it's also like there should be some fucking tactfulness on how you treat someone's hard work. I think.
I just noticed that in the bottom left of this picture, look at the ATMs.
Oh yeah, those cash only. Then
suck the money out of you.
Before they got super paranoid.
Look at that.
About like
fucking they cluster of ATMs out in the middle of Munster, Indiana,
their beer, or stealing their money.
Stealing their money. That's wild.
That was the good old days.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that was the good old days. We used to have a fun time in beer. Anyways, what else? What are we talking about besides?
I was thinking, you're going through. Well, we're in beer right now. Let's just talk about it.
Sure.
So, obviously, the pandemic kind of led you away from Half Acre, so it's kind of a a weird breakup of, you gave like 9 of your best years to this company. It's like, not that like, oh, fuck them. It's more like just a shock, to the system. I was like, oh my God, like I'm such a part of the fabric of this company, and like the world just experienced something that it's never experienced before. And now that, for better or for worse, I'm on my ass now at this point. And, you end up at Phase 3. Thank God for us and for me. I gained a cool guy that I like to talk to, and we gained a very talented salesperson. So to me, I've told you this before. Like, I admired the way you worked. I admired your approach to the game. I admired seeing you, mentor Johnsky even. Like, and John's got a million insanely good talents. The kid's a fucking star in everything that he does. But you kind of were like the kind of backbone and the structure, and like you always kind of had, to me, you've never said this to me, but in my eyes, you always had the philosophy of kind of being that guy. Like, I'm never going to ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself, And I always really appreciated and respected that about you. Didn't matter what time you needed to come and load the truck with the boys. Didn't matter how long you had to be there. Didn't matter but you also had this amazing way of balancing and being confident in the fact of like, my time is my time, and I'm not gonna run myself into the ground, for this. Yep. So I don't know. It's something I always appreciated and respected about you.
Yeah. Well, taking it all the way back to like when I first started Half Acre, I had a working job interview, and it was me. So essentially it was a guy training me on how to use the keg washer, a guy brewing, and a guy working in the cellar. And that was the 4 people working that day. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And then like the next day there'd be 5 people, because there'd be 2 people on the canning line, someone in the cellar, and someone brewing, and someone, training or whatever. And what I liked about that specific time period is that everyone was doing everything. There was no like levels. There was no like hierarchy really in place at that time. Everyone did everything. And what endeared me to Gabriel and to Matt and to, other people working there at the time was like, they led by example. They wouldn't ask you to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves or hadn't done themselves. Like, I was part of a very small wave of them starting to shift more on focusing on the business side of things and delegating work to other people. I really appreciated that. And when I became a manager at Half Acre, I had the same approach of like, I'm not going to just like make someone go and do work because I don't want to do it. I'm going to ask them to do it, and I'm going to try to show them a way to be successful in
different
doing
type of delegation.
Yeah. And also, like, I want to set them up for success. I want to find a way to manage somebody and not be their boss, and not just like, make them feel like I'm coming down on them or breathing down their neck, or whatever it might be. And that's how I always best responded to employers, was when they would work with me, not I worked for them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's such a small thing, but the more you can do to flatten a structure and not create this weird hierarchy, at least in my experience, that's what's gonna set people up for success, and hopefully like set them up in their career as well.
Yeah. And not at scale. It's like it's some situations it's not applicable almost.
Sure.
It's like you get to a certain number or whatever it is set up. It's all relative, but if your experience lies in like that small business at this point, right? And it's like that nailed it for you. That worked for you. That being said, I mean those guys ran and are still running a successful business, and they were awesome, and they did their best. They've started that business in the middle of a fucking worst time in human, I don't want to say human history, but like modern human history.
Sure.
One of the craziest things, especially, I guess for our generation.
Yep.
What a fucking time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What a thing we went through. And between Brittany, Sean, Evan, I have so much love for those guys and everything that they did and what they built. The fucking company's awesome. The branding, they cared about it. Like, they had a vision, they had a mission, like all that stuff. I learned a ton there. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, like the parting of ways, whether, you know, when it happened, it wasn't technically my choice to leave, but at the same time, it worked out really well for me and my family. And I still talk to those guys all the time. You know, yep. It was a great experience for me in one of the worst times that, you know, most humans have experienced in their lives currently. So I learned a ton from it.
Yep.
You know, I think that's going to be a lot of like the legacy of that quick time frame. But it was just wild. Like we talked about Half Acre and watching that growth for 9 years and all that. All that happened to them almost like in a 2-year span. Like it was like
I know.
Poof. Poof.
Yeah. I can't imagine going like on that scale. I mean, I think that they had a little bit of training wheels, for lack of a better term. You know, going from like, you know, RAM to more to Phase 3, like they did have opportunities to learn and to grow, and but you know, for whatever it's worth, like all that, like I don't know that anything sets you up to be the, you know, the person in charge, the person making the decisions, the person who's like, you know, future
responsible, like you for literally, all these heartbeats.
Yeah, I mean, you mortgage your future. You know, as like I don't know this, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I'm gonna like mortgage my future retirement fund to try to like build a business that hopefully can grow the same way that investing in like, you know, stock would. So it's deeply personal in that respect, and that's a very different level of trying to operate and to function versus just being like going from a brewer to that. Yeah. Like those are a lot of steps in the process that might have just been jumped over.
Wild.
So yeah, I mean,
small, family owned, and then grew so fast, and now you're talking about food. Like here, I mean, there's just the website, the branding, all that stuff. Like they built a hell of a business here, and it's a very good story within that time frame of craft beer to tell, because we are seeing some of these places that went a little nuts with expansion, and like, you know, that was a detriment, or they didn't advance. Like they are a good look at kind of like, all right, we got big. We did a crazy amount of beer during COVID. Like everybody did. Like everybody sold a crazy amount of to-go beer. There's crazy amounts of beer moving, obviously, in cans and all that. But they found like kind of a sweet spot, I think, of like how much beer they should be making every year, the brew schedule, the rotation, the types of beer. No doubt they make the high end on pretty much all styles. Obviously, they kill it with, you know, barley wines and stouts and barrel aging and hazy IPAs. But man, how many Lost in the Moments and Vivid Lights did we drink? And, you know, all these great little, you know, West Coast old school quote unquotes that we like to talk about with a modern twist. They're doing proper trolleyed regularly. Like, man, they kind of have a nice model, I think. And you're seeing the breweries that did that and didn't go nuts with trying to push their trying to push their production up like crazy numbers, or get in all these, you know, footholds for stores, and they didn't overdo their beer. And it's something that I think is happening right now, and it's a weird time with you know, the hockey stick's not there anymore. It's not up and to the right now. It's kind of stagnant, almost plateau. But now being kind of, you flipped almost, not flip, but like you're still in the industry, but you're in like a whole unique different version of the industry now. Yeah. So you're in the material side of it. I mean, did you ever think like at what point did you think like, oh yeah, I could do that?
Oh, never. Yeah. Never. In the same way, I never thought I would like want to be a brewer. Like it's not that I would have not considered working on the supplier side of things, but you know, I just didn't even think anything of it. The way my kind of career went from manufacturing to manufacturing beer to selling beer to doing events because of beer, you know, then going back to selling beer, and then leaving beer and going and thankfully, like when I left Phase 3, I took a little bit of a break, and then I worked in coffee for 8 or 9 months, and I think that
one of the most recognizable coffee brands that's not Folgers or you know, Starbucks.
Working at Dark Matter Coffee was great because it gave me, I think it like helped me have another connection back to the agricultural side of things. You know, I think I was 2 or 3 months in, and I was in Guatemala on a coffee farm.
It sounds like a Peterman story from Seinfeld or something.
It was just like you build another.
I was in Guatemala helping disadvantaged youth.
You build
what a brand they built.
Absolutely.
Man, wow.
You build a whole new respect for the product that you're selling when you see the people who are literally picking it by hand. Coffee,
insane. Beans.
Coffee is a product that
picking a fruit.
it can only be picked by hand. It's not like you can just like, you know, build these big machineries that just like make, you know, crank out coffee.
Yeah,
it doesn't work like that.
Like that, right?
It's gonna damage the berry. You're not gonna be able to tell the difference between like something that's ready and something that's not.
I'm a little coffee hoe nowadays too.
It's awesome. But anyways, just for like buttoning up my career trajectory. I'm really grateful for my time there, because like while I was going out and doing sales, I also got exposed to the agricultural element of it again. I grew up near a cornfield.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I didn't even think about that and put the coffee thing together with being out in the field.
Absolutely.
And the way something's pulled out of the earth.
So yeah, so when this job came, I was like, okay, well, I'm in coffee and I'm happy here, but there's like a very small handful of companies that I would want to go work for that have good branding, have good values, have good experience with their employees, like have low turnover rates. YCH was at the top of the list for me.
How do you even know that? Where are you finding those statistics?
It's not a statistic. It's just like
turnover rate and stuff you're talking about. Like, how do you know?
But it's like,
you getting like anecdotal stories from people that you knew that worked there? Or?
It's like, okay, yeah, like brewers that buy hops from YCH.
Yeah, these guys are the shit. Sorry, I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, is that color off?
No,
no. You're producing and
you're doing a lot at the same time. I keep watching.
I like my conversations. This does hinder that, but I mean, it's worth it to be able to at least produce a little bit of change instead of just one fucking shot for 2 hours of us talking.
This might be my first like video podcast I think I've done.
Oh shit!
All the Beer Temple ones are
people can see all the beauty now. See, they can see what the money maker.
So. There was just a thing where like I knew a lot of people who had a lot of favorable things to say about YCH, and you know, in you know, different parts of the country that you'd be like, oh yeah, they like, I've had the same rep for a long time or whatever. So when this position came available, I was like, you know, I don't know every single hop on the planet, but I bet I can
Is that required?
learn. I bet I can learn that. I bet I can learn how to go out and have conversations with brewers on how to like sell hops and what they need. And really like a lot of what I do now is about like helping companies project their usage,
like their needs.
Yeah.
Well, it's something I wanted to bring up, and like it's one of the, you know, I'm listening. I don't want to like start formulating my own thoughts and then not listening to what you're saying.
No, you're fine.
So I was thinking about it. I never brought it up while we were talking earlier, but it relates to what we're talking about now. That period we talked about the hop shortage, and then like the hazy thing hit, and like hazy's created their own kind of fuck up in the hop game, and it was. I just remember learning about and being super enthralled by like the contracting versus, you know, people are spot buying, people are third party buying, and place like Brothership is buying Citra hops from Toppling Goliath, you know, because Toppling Goliath, and how you know, how close are they on their projections, all that stuff of like what they're going to need in that hop to make that beer, and how difficult that must be on like smaller breweries and local breweries. Like, how much do I need if I am going to go do a hop rub, if I'm going to get a contract, if I'm going to, you know, what do I do? All Citra? Do I do Mosaic Citra, Eldorado, etc.? So it's such a game within the game almost of the hop world. But there was a time I remember, you know, some people were like, oh, they were like, Citra would be like $30 a pound or something.
Sure.
But then they'd have to go to Triptych, because Triptych had a surplus of it, and they'd sell it at their contract price to them for $20 or $12 a pound or something. And I think is it come back a little bit? Are we back to center a little bit? I mean, everything's more expensive. We know that. Like, that's the thing, right?
Well, it's unique time in the beer industry.
It's going to keep changing.
Yeah. So we as a supplier, we're impacted by the overall industry, not just the craft beer industry,
right,
but just the overall beer landscape, and not just like what people are drinking and what brewers are using, but everything combined. Like, okay, what styles are people going to want to drink? What their consumption habits? Are they going to be consuming? Pardon me. Are they going to be consuming THC products? Are they going to be consuming wine and spirits and all that?
Mostly high noons.
Yeah, it's this always evolving landscape in the adult beverage world.
It's a shit show, is what you're trying to say politely.
So to your point, like,
hey, it's counting. I like that.
Are we working? We're not flashing red anymore.
I had a little video, blow up here. All of a sudden, I started seeing some red flashing. So I just decided to call it quits. I know we got up to that hop conversation, so we can just kind of dump right into that, into that. It's just you were kind of talking about now a lot of your job being part of just kind of helping these companies figure out how much do you need, like how much the supply. Right. Sure, you want them to order a shit ton more than they need. Sure, why not? I like sales, but you want them to have you don't want to get them screwed over. The more you can help them succeed, the better it is for everybody, probably.
Yeah, my role is interesting in that I'm trying to simultaneously sell hops for now, but also help sell or like forecast the hops they're going to need in the future. Mm-hmm. And
basically Wall Street shit.
maybe I wouldn't necessarily say it's that glamorous, but
sure it is.
The company I work for is unique in that it's operates almost as a co-op, to where it's owned and or we are owned by the growers that supply the hops to us. So a lot, like pretty much every decision we make needs to make sense for the brewer, needs to make sense for YCH, who's like the
middle. Basically,
maybe I would say like the procurer, the supplier, the processor, the broker, for a better term. It's got to make sense for YCH. It's got to make sense for the brewery. And it's got to make sense for the growers as well. So we're not set up to just make a massive profit that benefits just YCH or just benefits the growers, or just sell everything for super cheap because that benefits a brewery. We have to find a perfect balance between the three parties, essentially. So that's
so everybody's healthy,
right? So that's what I'm spending all day, every day,
all the days, all the times, all the hours,
which is awesome. I'm grateful for it. It's we have. If you go on our website, it talks about our mission and our vision, which is something that really appealed to me and really drew me to the website, or to the company. I'm sorry, I was looking at the website. We're trying to
you just talked about grower owned.
Yeah, and we're trying to connect the best brewers in the world with the best growers in the world. So our website does a good job of kind of running through our story. And talking about how that stuff's really matters to us.
Timeline.
So
just imagine somewhere around here it just says the hazy IPA. No.
Right. Maybe somewhere between 14 and 18 or 19. Yeah, mission, vision, and values. So those we talk about those, and then our pride statement. We talk about this in every single larger company meeting that we have, and it's important. It really does drive everything that we do. And it's not just like, I like to point it out to people, because it's like, man, you guys are just trying to make as much money as you can. It's like, actually, we're not. That's not.
Well, let me point something out to you. That's not actually what's happening.
So, like, I only bring that up because I'm not, as a relationship based salesperson. I'm trying to make the right connection to a brewer that makes sense for them. I'm talking to breweries today. They're like, yeah, we don't contract because we don't really have like a set production schedule, and we don't necessarily know the hops we're going to be using on a week to week, month to month basis.
Everybody wants to be nimble and flexible.
Yeah. And I understand that, but it's, speaking to like where beer was in like 2011, 12 through 17, 18, like
different.
You don't want to not have that raw material that you need. So that's where contracting can help out and make sense. And it can help us with forecasting what to grow for breweries.
Which is hugely important for you guys, right? I mean,
and the farmers.
Obviously, the small business wants to succeed and they want to have the advantage of knowing things. But I mean, you gotta take that backwards and think, the growers need to know what what they're planting and my approach honestly is to under contract people a little bit, so if they need to they need a little bit more before the next crop is ready, like we can figure that out. But it's this cycle that most people have been working in a lot longer than I have. It's like it kind of goes the same way year after year of like when the new crop is ready, when the old stuff needs to get out of the warehouse, etc. So just within that framework, that's kind of what I'm spending my day to day on. Yeah. What does it look like for you? Are you like you're not usually in a building, I assume, like you're traveling to just spot to spot. Are you doing a lot of work from home? Is it like a decent mix?
I'm on the road, bud.
Just always? Always, like every day? I'm
on the road like
that new whip, just pushing that whip. All right.
I'm on the road about 40% of the time.
Okay.
So, I've got 10 states I cover. Trying to see everybody at least twice a year.
So you flying a lot?
Try a little bit, yeah.
A little
about
bit.
Once a month I fly.
Okay.
So flying to Minnesota next week.
Minnesota
and South Dakota, actually. Excited about that.
So when you're plotting out a Minnesota trip, for example, whatever, like, are you hitting 10 places, 2 places? Like how much attention is that required on that trip to?
It kind of depends on the mission of the day almost. The first time I went up there, which was in November, it was election week. It was a very, very large swing of emotions that week in Minnesota. But for that specific trip, I was just trying to meet as many customers as I could that already have relationships with us.
Okay.
And that was just the nature of that specific time frame. Now it's like we're getting ready to, we're going into planning and growing season or planting season, I should say. So now it's about making sure people have their hops contracts in order so we can figure out what we need to project.
Time. Yeah.
So
it's pretty much constant forecasting then.
It is, yeah.
Just different seasons of it.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so enough of the boring stuff, and then, our work is not what makes us, right? I mean, you're a guy, like, sure, we know each other, but we worked together for 2 years now, like we were best friends growing up, and we don't know everything about each other. Just on the double shot.
I want people to understand something here. I know I keep talking to the camera. When I met Joe, we literally worked like this.
This was literally like our desk setup. This is not a foreign setup for us.
A white thing here, like a plastic barricade.
It was a divider, so we didn't fall in love with one another and physically touch each other.
And we were masked up at that point in time. So it's like we were
just looking eyes over. Eric's a lot taller than I am, so he could see over most things.
We're seeing this much of each other
every day.
Yeah, and that was it.
Every day.
And that was a great time.
Those were great times.
Yeah, and we were in a room probably about this size. But what I remember is behind you was Sean and Evan's office where they had the subwoofer.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Or was it behind me?
I can't remember.
It was behind me, I think.
It was behind you.
Because they had the
merch room.
They had their office.
The merch room.
Yeah.
That was my old office, and we moved.
And
I think that's.
They had the subwoofer. They had the very nice stereo in their office. So all of a sudden we would just trying to have a meeting, or like Joe would be like on a meeting with Osner, and all of a sudden it'd be like music blasting everywhere.
I'm like, you oversold Arabesque, you fucking assholes.
I remember when he was like farting around, and all of a sudden he like made the raffle live. Mm-hmm. Was it? I think like that might have been Sean. I think. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't remember what, if it was Minushi maybe.
Yeah,
it was. I was like, what? We couldn't. We're like, wait, did that just happen?
Yep.
It was on them. It was on Osner. I think they they eventually built a button or something. Like
we all grew together.
Mm-hmm.
We all learned the hard way.
Those are wild times, right? This is like if you talk to Jeff Bezos, now he'd probably be like, "Oh, those times we were selling textbooks, like those were the good old days. We were building something together."
Yep.
That's how it was. I feel like sometimes it's just like, I literally watched the walls being built when I started. At that place.
You were there, yeah. I didn't get to do that part of Phase 3, but you
saw quite a bit of growth in the time from you when you starting. Too.
I know.
You also saw me drop a pallet of beer in our cooler. I think 90 cases.
I saw the video of it.
90 cases.
I saw the video of it.
Yeah, it was not great. It was not a proud moment for me.
It made the
all.
next week's sales really easy because I didn't have anything to sell. That happened twice in the 3 years 2.5 years I was there, where it was like, well, we don't got anything to sell you, so
I can't remember.
My work here is done. It was
like the reddish kind of fish scaly.
I have a
not
photo.
pearlescent.
No, it was called I want to say overloads, but that's not the right word. It was like a one.
God damn it! It was like a reddish label. I feel like
I've got a photo.
It was a double hazy.
Yeah, come on, of course.
Thank God.
I remember that
it could have been a pallet of Unoyas.
But was that? I feel like that might. I was either driving a van because I was
by necessity.
But I'm trying to remember if it was because we were distroing bushel or if it's because we were our van was in the shop or whatever. Which
I think we was getting close to minutiae drop because it was end of fall. Because I remember we were spending a lot of time in the area next door, the next unit.
Yep.
Anyways, that was not.
I'm gonna find the photo.
I do not want to relive that moment.
I felt bad for you. I remember walking in and it was walking into a fucking funeral because someone.
Wild.
It was like
everybody jumped into action and grabbed shovels in the tippy dump and just started shoveling cans in there and trying to clean that cooler up. And we were just opening at 3:00 on a Friday, I think. It was just about to be, I'm
gonna find this photo, Joe.
The new beers available. Oh my God!
I felt bad for you. I want you to know that that's an example of you not doing anything wrong, but you not being set up for success.
I was a dumbass. That was not a good move on my own part. As an adult man, I should have made a better decision.
How are you supposed to know a pallet's going to break? It's not your fault.
God, that sucked.
Yeah,
the sound of the snap.
I saw the video.
Some of them were like, "Oh yeah, we talked about not using plastic pallets anymore." I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah, it's not your fault though.
I probably could have broke a wood pallet too if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the thing I was trying to get at, our time together, we learned a little bit about each other. You're a Cardinal fan. It's fucking crazy to me, right? No, you're a White Sox fan.
I'm a Cardinals fan.
No, you are a Cardinals fan, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you grew up in an area where that was not crazy.
I grew up on the dividing line between Chicago.
I went to Western Illinois for college, and it was crazy how many Cardinal fans were there. White Sox, Cubs, Cardinals. It was like a weird mix. And during my college years, of course, the Cardinals and White Sox won a world championship, and the Cubs did not.
Overlaid. I was so close.
Damn it, you were right. Overlaid. Wow.
If you zoom out.
God damn it.
This is the.
Hold on, wait. Can you
where am I holding it?
Hold it up to that one.
This is
stretch your arm all the way up to that camera as much as you can.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Can they zoom in? They can't zoom in.
I'm not gonna.
So this was just like we pulled up.
I can make it look bigger to you right now, though.
We had two full dumpsters just full of cans that were all damaged.
Top shelf.
That fell like 10 feet. And luckily, what Joe's skipping over is no one got hurt.
Could have been.
No one got injured, thankfully. And we had to throw a little bit of beer away. 100 cases.
Yeah, it was like 90-some cases, I
Yeah.
think. And I drank a lot of Overlaid after that. Whatever didn't explode on the floor.
That was brutal.
I didn't have to squeegee off the floor.
But you think about it, like that damage versus the damage of like the cooler door getting like pretty jacked up.
I forgot about the cooler door.
Still jacked up.
Wild. But again, I'm going to try to get here eventually. But thing that I slowly learned about you is, I did mention earlier about like your time was your time, and you were not afraid of like, I'm going on PTO. Like this is my time. I'm going on vacation.
Yeah.
Like I have this plan. This is what I'm doing. But you like to be outside. Like let's I'll go full honesty, right? So I'm a born and raised, young Catholic man from the southwest suburbs. I meet people, and I think mentally I automatically put them into a box, like a visual, like, okay, Eric's got tattoos on his arm, he's got the hair, whatever it was, whatever trigger. He worked at Half Acre for 9 years. That tells me something about you, which isn't always, a great indicator of a person, right? So, but it's like a baseline. It's like, okay, this is what I might be able to expect out of a person. That's like my psychology, I guess, and then I get, you get to know the person, and you start to figure out, oh, that's the real person. But like, you like to be outside. You like to go do, like, your trips always tend to sound like they're going to be, I'm going to hike, I'm going to see trees, I'm going to, so like what drives that? Like, is that something from youth? Is that something like you did with your parents, or like what makes you kind of attracted to just being in that setting versus like, we're going to a beach, an all-inclusive resort. I'm going to get blackout drunk and sit on the beach for a week and eat crazy food,
Well, I mean, honestly, Joe, 2 weeks ago I was in Cabo.
Hell yeah.
And I was
sitting
on a beach, and I was just so, I didn't want to be in America for the inauguration, if I'm being honest with you. I wanted to not be present for that moment. Right. I wanted to kind of have my head buried in the sand. Because I still am really embarrassed. But anyways, there's a balance there. I mean, we try to take a warm, a nice warm beach vacation once a year to do nothing. But then there's other times where we want to go and be outside. I don't know, man. Like when I was a kid, I grew up right by a cornfield. I grew up in a small town. Almost all my family vacations were camping, in like 30 minutes from our house. We'd go camping and go fishing, and that was our vacation in the summertime. So I built up appreciation and respect for the outdoors. I guess at that point in time I could have been more into it. It's not like I'm a big fisherman or a big hunter or anything like that. But I do like to breathe in some fresh air. I think I don't know, man. There's just like a point in time where open space and the something about like a fresh air in a non-urban environment is really appealing to me. So
all right,
that still resonates. But I do like to be outside in the summertime, man. I think the wintertime makes you appreciate the nice weather in Chicago.
Does. This winter, for some reason, and it's not like it's been brutal or anything, but this winter has really like got, people always talk about seasonal, disorders and all that. But it's really gotten me this year where it's just like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Like it sucks when it snows like crazy and there's terrible storms or the roads are shitty, but it's like I work from home at this desk right here in front of you every day. I don't really have any expectation from my company to be in a building or be anywhere any given day. So it's like, that's fine. But I for some reason this year has just been, I fucking hate it. I think I started getting on my bike, at the end of the summer last year, and I was loving it. It was like daily, I was putting in hundreds of miles and stuff, and I was loving it. And then November came around, and it was like, oh, it was only a couple of days. And then December, I was like, fuck this, I'm not going on a bike anymore. So it's just like, I think it's just making me bummed out. Like it's just making me bummed out.
That's why we do. I mean, this is like so corny and lame talk about. I'm sorry. But that's why we do a vacation every year in the winter. It's to somewhere warm. It's like we need sunshine. We my wife and I really feed off of that. Almost
vitamin
like a
D's real, huh?
Yeah,
fucking science.
I know.
How about it?
So the years where we like didn't have the chance to go on those trips, like it was pretty hard.
It's a struggle.
But grateful for everything in life. Honestly, grateful for health and grateful for, being able to go out and go to state parks and go to national parks and things like that. I think COVID made me feel more of an itch that I needed to be outside of. Yeah. Because, man, honestly, when I got laid off from Half Acre, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? This is like my only thing.
It had to be such a shock for you.
It's hard.
I mean, I know we've talked bits and pieces about it.
What's the driving factor? What's the motivating factor here? And it was really tough. I know so many people that were like, yeah, man, COVID hit, it was dope. I got to watch all the Sopranos. Yep. I got to play all these video games. I got to do all stuff. I was like, man, I
started raising my kids a little bit. It was cool. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I grew a new appreciation for my partner.
Like, what?
Yeah.
No, my wife's actually kind of dope.
Yeah, turns out.
Or people are like, fuck this. We're not doing this the rest of our lives.
That also,
we are out.
Yeah, that also happened for a lot of people. But I was just awesome. I was like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I need. But I really felt like paralyzed. I was like, I'm so afraid. Like I didn't have a backup plan at all.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to find something I felt good about. A few months, really. That's a very entitled thing to say. But
gravy train.
Yeah, you do like realize like you don't think about you take so much for granted in your life. Like this beer, like it just like took care of my life and a lot of people's businesses.
You thought you were untouchable. You thought you were untouchable. And
don't get me started on that. I thought that was not even real. Anyways,
I 100% agree with you. I looked at it. I rolled over on like Sunday morning. I was like, nuh-uh. So no way. Somebody fucked up.
So I was, my friend, like I mentioned earlier, my friends and I did the Royal Rumble party. And then we were hanging out. So awesome. Drinking beers, just catching up. It was all these people I used to work with, these people I love. And I don't get to see as much because they have kids, suburbs, whatever, life.
Losers.
No, I would never say that. Just kidding. I love them so much. But then I get home, I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I like open my phone, and I've got a thing that says Luka traded to the Lakers for AD.
Shams Charania.
I was like, what? There's no fucking way.
I was like, how does that even make sense?
Like you can't. There's nothing I'm going to say here that makes it make any sense. But I was like, it's kind of bizarre. Anyways, but yeah, it's I think we're in all. I'm grateful for everything the way it worked out that it did, but it was a very like hard time for me to like adjust to the new reality. I'm sure that is such a common story for people, and I'm grateful that I came out of it healthy and with my family intact and all of that. But yeah, it's wild the way it all worked out, but here we are. It's all for the best.
Well, it really did. It worked out for the best. It was a wild fucking time, don't get me wrong. But all the movement, everything is kind of like settled in now. And it's like, I still feel like that though sometimes. Like, is this like, wait, is this what I'm supposed to do until I'm 50 something? Yeah. I'll never retire, right? Like, I don't, I don't know. I love doing this. I love doing the conversations and stuff. I'm like, nobody's going to pay me for this. This is for me. This always was like, I did the audio one with in craft beer. Yeah. There's like 100 episodes of it. And it's like, they're like, oh, would you? I'm like, no, I didn't have any sponsors. I was never good enough to like, have enough people. But if you get a few hundred people listen to it, people talk about it, they still, come up to me and ask about it. It's like, that's something that brings me a whole great thing of joy. So
that's great.
The pandemic fucked that up too. Now finally doing it again. So
that's great.
I'm glad to be back at it. But the other kind of little like fun stuff, like when did you start getting tattoos? Like all the little goofy stuff,
2002. When I turned 18.
They were like the first one where you just like couldn't wait. Was it like a thing I have to wait till I'm 18 to get it, or like now I can make my own decision? Or
it's really just a thing that grew out of me loving nu metal music, and all my like musicians that I like really loved and cared about had tattoos, and it was such less of a common occurrence. I mean, the amount of people that had tattoos in 2002 versus now, percentage wise, like it's grown up. It's gone up a lot.
People
and like,
you would never think even.
Yeah, exactly. Like my mother-in-law and my father-in-law both have tattoos. My dad has one. I mean, they're everyone's are like the size of a nickel.
Yeah, not yours, but
they're adorable.
They're trying.
But I don't know, man. I got into it, and I had a friend who was a tattoo artist that I grew up with and was really close friends with, and he did like almost all my work on my arm. Yeah. For better or worse. So I started in 2002. Still have a guy in Chicago.
Walking to Tripping Animals when we got to Doral, Florida, and you like I don't think I've ever seen Eric in shorts. And like sandals, and I was like, "Do you have a calf tattoo or something?"
Nothing.
Or no,
I got nothing on the bottom
on your
half.
legs. Okay,
yeah, it's all
on your legs.
It's all upper body.
Maybe it was just shocking to see you in shorts.
Sure.
That I was thinking of. I was thinking, like, was there a tattoo or was it?
I think a lot of people do tattoos places they can cover up. I
right,
realized early on that like if me having tattoos is going to disqualify me from a job, it probably shouldn't be somewhere I want to work.
That's probably not the way. Yeah, that's probably not the way you want to work. Huh? I'm just scared of needles, man. That's why I don't get them.
My wife's the same way.
Plus, my other excuse is always like I've never come up with anything that I think would be profound enough to put on me yet.
I still haven't either.
People, I know. you have some ones that you're like, I feel like you're like, yeah, it's fine. Like I just did it.
No, I have plenty that I regret.
That's why plenty of tattoo places have like the box, or you can pick a mystery tattoo and it's cheaper or whatever. That's a thing, right?
I've been seeing this tattoo shop that has like a suction, or not a suction, but they have like you like shoot like a plunger dart, and wherever it lands is the tattoo you get.
I kind of like that.
Close your eyes and point it at the
and
wall.
It's just like the sample tattoos at the okay.
Yeah.
The little sample tats. So do you have stuff like that you're eyeing up? Like, do you have plans, or is it just like they hit you spontaneous? Like maybe
they're all different for me.
Like, do you have like symbolism or like things that are just like that?
No
looks
way.
Cool. I'm gonna put that shit in there.
No way. None of them mean anything.
Not Japanese lettering that may or may not.
I've never been a person that is into that like for myself. But if that's what makes people happy, God bless them.
Again, we don't try to tell people how to fan around here.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think earlier you mentioned softball, so I want to talk about that. I
don't know why I always loved talking to you about that, because it was like you'd like real joy when you would talk about it.
That's the best. No, I
think you guys like didn't do it for a year or two or something, or like I don't remember if it was pandemic related or if it was just you guys couldn't get it together or something. And then I remember talking to you again, and you'd be like, "Yeah, we're back, dude."
Yep.
You like hurt yourself or something. I think the last time we talked about it, like your wrist or your arm or something.
Both of those are true. So, I was as someone who didn't grow up in Chicagoland, and who. I remember, so one of my old coworkers at Half Acre, Matt, he was like a way better baseball player than I was. So I don't know, probably the summer of 2011, we went out somewhere near the lake and started playing tried to play in a fast pitch baseball game.
Oh gosh.
And I realized that it had been at least 10 years since I had tried to swing at a baseball, and this guy was pitching like in the 70s, 80s, and it was like impossible for me to make the decision to figure out how to swing at it. So a couple years later, I was calling on an account. It's probably 2013 or 2014. I was hoping I was fine. I didn't want to distract you. There's no fucking way you're gonna find anything about our softball.
I haven't found anything. I was just hoping to find a picture pop up or something.
It used to be. I mean, there was a photo. They might have deleted it at this point, but there was a photo on Half Acre's Instagram page there's a picture of me actually.
Wait, what?
Right below you, right there. That's me.
Hold on, I gotta bring this. I gotta bring this in.
Yeah, that's a photo of me.
Oh my God! Look at my guy. I didn't know this guy. I didn't know this guy. That's a shame. I didn't know.
Same
this
guy. Turns out.
It's a shame I didn't know this guy. Look at that. I love that shirt, dude.
Yeah.
I would wear that shirt right now.
I might have sold it on eBay.
Little pony there?
Yeah, that's when we rebranded it.
I was gonna say it's all rebranded there.
It's been rebranded since.
Yeah, right. It's
twice,
now, right?
I think.
Yeah.
I like the new.
Look at the quality of this photo. Who's the hop culture?
Yeah, that's probably it.
All right, look at this. 8 questions. All right. Go on. Back to softball. We're talking.
There was
a photo.
There was a photo. There was a photo on our Instagram page of us when we won the championship in 2019.
Dude. Hell yeah!
So if you look at my private Instagram page, you'll see a photo of us after we won the championship.
We decided to chat with Eric Kapraun, Half Acre's events manager, and Matt Gallagher, co-founder.
This was
superintendent of the brewery.
When was this? When we were trying to promote Far and Away, because we had such a hard time trying to.
It
sell
sounds
tickets
like
for that.
it. 2018, best beer festivals. Yeah,
we were having such a hard time trying to sell tickets for that, and we learned a lot of lessons from that. Anyways, I was calling on a bar that ran a softball league as part of its like Friday night, like whatever, and it was going on for a long time before me. And they were like, yeah, man, we've got a team that needs a few people. Do you want to play? And I was like, sure. So I started playing on this team with these random people. They were a lot of fun. And fell in love with playing softball. What's great about Chicago softball is you don't need any equipment to play. You just need a bat and a ball. You don't even need a glove. How great is that?
It's the most old man American thing you've ever said right there. None of this fancy shit you gotta you get a ball and a bat.
But sincerely, that's how the game got started and grew in popularity in Chicago. Is you could, you literally didn't need any equipment to play it. When it started initially, it was like, you could just make a ball and use a fucking stick to use as a bat. Eventually it grew to the Chicago style softball, 16-inch softball, whatever you want to call it. It grew to a point where they were playing games at Wrigley Field and all that. There's like a whole Chicago softball museum, literally
underground,
that exists. But anyways,
it's such a big thing though.
After playing it,
inch on it. Yeah,
it's great,
huge.
After playing it for a few years with some random people, I started a team with my coworkers, and it's just been going ever since. Co-ed softball, it's great. I love it. It's a chance for me to not feel like a 40-year-old man once a week. And I get excited about the games. I don't care if we win or lose. I just want to have fun playing.
Oh, yeah.
That's all that matters.
No doubt.
In 2022, I threw a pitch. I went to catch it.
Is that what you do, the kind of
slow pitch, underhand?
What do you call that when you go that way versus underhand that way?
I don't know. Backspin versus whatever. Most pitchers obviously have their own approach. I like to do the backspin a little bit. The idea is maybe they'll just have to swing under it and they'll pop out rather than just slam a ball.
Spin on them, yeah.
I went to catch a hit, and my a ball came at my hand, and it went bing, and my finger snapped.
Oh my gosh!
And right there, can't see it now because it's been surgically repaired.
Yeah.
But I kept playing. Cause I'm a fucking idiot and a meathead when I get on that field.
But different guy when he gets in between those lines.
As the night went on, and I was like going out to Wild Goose with my Mike Shalau from Iswas and Chris from Beer Temple.
I gotta have him back on again for.
And actually, Jude, it was Jude. It wasn't Chris. It was Jude. It was me, Jude, and Mike. And
that's a table I want to be a part of.
I'm looking in my hand, and I'm like, oh, this is like very purple and very swollen. But a few Allagash Whites later, I don't think anything of it.
Didn't really matter at that point. No.
The next morning I wake up and I'm like, Rachel, look at this. She's like, well, you need to go to the hospital. It was like the only game in a long time that she wasn't at.
It's like Daryl Juice with Daryl Moose Johnston's fingers when you see him on the Fox football broadcast. They all point different directions.
Well, a few weeks later after my surgery, I was talking to the guy who hit the ball that broke my hand. He's like, yeah, you got a wounded paw there, huh, bud? Yeah. I'm like, yeah. Broken hand or broken finger, whatever, got surgery. He's like, man, and he like held his fingers up, and every one of them was pointing different ways. Like, yeah, I usually just pop it back into place and just keep going. And when I went to the doctor, he was like, you can not have surgery and keep playing, but your finger will never be able to bend again. And I was like, well, I kind of think for once in my life, I'm going to choose my future rather than the present. So
don't want to live in this moment.
Yeah,
I love that when I searched your name, just threw your name in there, there's this blue sky, and I see the Limp Bizkit logo right there.
I deleted my Twitter account.
What a
Limp
Bizkit guy! What a Limp Bizkit guy!
That's me. But that's funny that photo of at Sheffield with Gabriel. I remember I made him go on that podcast, and he was so not thrilled about
Beer
it.
Pod 25.
Yeah.
He doesn't look very happy.
He was
in
not.
The picture, if I'm being honest.
What's funny is we got a beer of the month lined up,
and it doesn't look that happy here.
No, he was not. Oh, Monunk Talk too. That's amazing.
Look at this guy.
God,
look at this guy.
That's amazing. He was so pissed, and I was on that podcast too, but I was definitely not one of the featured people.
You weren't the guy.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Wow. So what else pops up when you search my name?
Here we go. Phase Three Brewing Company, Monunk Talk, emails.
Love it.
Hop Culture, Yakima Chiefs, Hops in the About section. Regional Sales Manager, there he is.
Yep, that's me.
Homeward Bound.
That was a Zoom episode of the Beer Temple podcast.
No shit.
Shout
out to the Beer Temple podcast.
From my bedroom,
give it a listen.
Where I was like so depressed.
Chris is outstanding. What a business they run.
Yep.
Yeah, that's look at this.
My LinkedIn photo.
This guy.
What's the one?
That does look like your LinkedIn photo.
It is.
Looks
What's
like
the one next to it?
I don't know.
Am I even in that?
It says regional sales.
Who is that?
That's
David
Dave from Moore. Right?
That's David.
Yeah, he's from Moore, originally of Workforce Brewing.
Yeah.
It's OG there. All right. Sorry. Distractions. More distractions. Sorry. I Googled. We got distracted. Well, I mean, I won't like force you to stay on mics for forever tonight, but I mean, it's that week. So Super Bowl thoughts, predictions, anything? Man, you watching? What do you
When
guys
does this
do?
go out? When does this go out?
I haven't put one out in like 2 weeks, so I'm probably just gonna edit and throw it out ASAP. So
cool.
it might actually come out before the Super Bowl.
Okay.
But yeah, if not, I'll put it out on Monday, day after the Super Bowl.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
Yeah. Either way, though, it might go both ways. So
I'm kind of thinking the Chicago Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year.
God damn it! God damn it!
I was sitting on.
Hey, you know what? R.I.P. Virginia. Virginia passed today,
I should say.
Right? Today.
I know. I was honest. So I mentioned when we were in Cabo, I was sitting on a beach, drinking a Pacifico on January 20th. I wasn't thinking about anything else on the planet. Just really at peace with the world. Was getting ready to, go on a whale watching tour with my wife, and really excited to do that. And all of a sudden, my phone blows up in my group chat that the Bears hired Ben Johnson, and I was like moved to tears, excited by it.
It's just kind of like, wow, they actually did the thing that everybody wanted them to do.
I know, same,
Just
and
almost never.
And in that moment, my thought was like, it's either the next decade of my life is going to, with the Bears, is going to be a potentially amazing and heartbreaking experience, or it's going to be more of the same. And I would like to think that there is a positive outlook. So I'm obviously joking about the Bears winning the Super Bowl this weekend.
I just keep thinking it can't be Matt Nagy part 2, right? This is a different thing. This guy's got 3 years, solid, 26 points per game offense he's running. And
it could be.
We don't have the personnel.
It could
be.
We don't
have the personnel there that they have. But
I don't want to live in that.
They can get there.
I don't want to live in that pessimistic reality. I want to live in an optimistic reality.
I refuse to.
So I'm all in, and I've quit pretty much every sports team except for the Cardinals and the Bears.
It's real hard. It's real
the
hard
Cardinals
in Chicago.
Are right now on the outs
Cardinals
for me.
not. Yeah, they're not. They're definitely causing their own issues for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're doing with like how they're running the front office and whatnot currently. I just know the product on the field better than it probably was supposed to be this year, but not up to the standard of what the Cardinals have seen the last 20 years.
They have no direction, and it's fine. They'll scrape it together. I feel like the rebuilds in baseball take a long time. It's also hard because of if you look at like who's going to possibly compete with the Dodgers. Like that's
the Dodgers
really going to be a challenge for a long time.
It's a shame.
So I'm all in
individually. Like I don't have any issue with Freddie Freeman or Shohei Ohtani or any of these people, but. Yeah, it sucks to watch them just keep piling it.
We got 6 of the top 10 pitchers. No big deal.
I think the issue I have is more or less the way that they're doing these contracts. It kind of feels a little gross the way they're pushing money out. Whatever. Hey, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're the smartest guy in the room. You figured it out. Bravo. Yeah. But it's hard to root for. It's hard to be like excited to watch them.
Any other team could do that, right? They could.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, remember that era of the Cardinals, even like when Tony Womack was like your worst hitter leading off, and then it was fucking, Pujols and Larry Walker, like Tino Martinez, or there was all these fucking guys. Like the whole lineup was crazy. Yep. Like it's when the pitcher used to have to bat, but still,
right? Yeah,
crazy. But it's just not that fun to watch the way the Dodgers are doing it because there's so much money.
Yeah,
there's so much money involved.
Yeah. I think that I do wonder long term the separation between what a professional athlete makes and what a fan of professional sports makes. If that growth or that delta between those earnings, like at a certain point, like why should the athlete care? They have nothing to worry about for the rest of their life. Deservedly so. They've in theory earned that money.
Yeah.
Versus like, man, sure. I can't like. as a human being, it's like, wow, this person has such talent. I can't even relate to them because the life they're on track for will never compare to what I have to deal with in my life every day.
It just doesn't make sense. You don't wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
It's like augmented reality. Like I don't even know what I'm looking at this point.
Right.
Anyway, Super Bowl. Sorry, I went full into baseball.
No, that's my fault. I got so excited about the Bears too.
If I'm being honest with you, I'm actually potentially thinking about starting a spin-off of this next year with talking baseball type thing. Yeah. I just don't know how I want to approach it yet. It's in my mind right now, so baseball is in my head. So sorry.
I love baseball.
But football, Eagles,
I don't know,
Chiefs,
man, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Green jacket, gold jacket, who gives a shit?
I mean, so me and some friends will get together. I'll make some buffalo cauliflower dip. I'll make some.
So okay, wait. I'm already interrupting here.
Please.
The cauliflower. The cauliflower. Would you treat that cauliflower before you cook, or like before you, or because my first thought was, I would air fry that cauliflower and then replace. Most people make buffalo chicken dip. I'd just replace the chicken with that cauliflower. I think that'd be tasty.
So the idea is just that.
Or do you just go raw into the buffalo chicken dip?
I'm raw dog,
and then
raw dog.
Yeah,
you're mixing it in, you're baking it. Like I think when you bake it, you soften up the cauliflower.
It gets that.
Yeah. We also have one I've made a few times that was like Velveeta cheese chorizo or soy chorizo, and then roasted jalapeno peppers. It's really good too.
That sounds like something I want to be a part of.
So we used to. I mentioned stout brunch. That was a thing we used to do. Another thing we used to do was after our fantasy draft every year, after our fantasy league was over, we used to get together and watch the first round of the playoffs. And I used to call it Dip Fest. Everyone would bring a dip. We would drink, light beer, and we would watch 2 football games. It was an awesome day.
Wild card weekend, so much fun.
But now there's a lot more games. Wild card weekend is a lot longer,
bigger now. Yep.
And everyone's moved away or whatever. So Dip Fest is kind of de facto what we do for the Super Bowl, and me and some friends will get together for that.
Dip Fest.
Who's gonna win? I don't know.
You care? How much you follow football this year? No, didn't.
All the way.
Oh, you did?
All the way. Yeah, of course.
Fantasy?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Horrible. It's my
Nothing?
worst season I can remember.
Really?
No playoffs.
How many? One team? Multiple teams?
I've been in 2 leagues for over a decade. The third one I just started with my Yakima Chief Hops people. Mm-hmm. So I did an in-person draft during harvest.
Into the culture. I like that.
Actually, it was before harvest. It was I went out for Hop and Brew School, which is like essentially an accelerated like seminar to like trade show, also chance to see like hop farms and processing facilities and all that kind of stuff. So I got to do that 'cause they usually do that for someone in their first year. So I got to go and do that, which was awesome. And I also got to be there for the fantasy
draft.
And I got to do a fantasy draft. And I finished all my leagues. I finished 1 spot outside of the playoffs.
What?
And it was annoying. Yeah,
that's fucking really annoying.
I know.
That's the worst.
So who's gonna win? I don't know. I guess I'd say I'd want the Eagles to more than the Chiefs. What about you?
I'm fully on board with what the Chiefs have done. I mean, I wasn't like this with the Patriots, but with the Chiefs for some reason, I'm enjoying this like potential greatness thing, and like I don't know if it's my older age now. I'm trying to like appreciate the greatness. Don't be the hater.
Yeah, sure.
Shannon all of a sudden loves watching football now. So Shannon went through a phase. We used to do a couples fantasy football league. So that brought her and a bunch of her girlfriends under the tent, right? Like, so they were watching on Sundays with us. So we could have a party, before kids. Sure. Even when we had a couple, the first ones, it was less like, it got her excited. Like there'd be Sunday and she'd be like, "Fuck Drew Brees." I'm like, "Yes, that's my wife. That's what I'm talking about. Like that's it." And then we got away from doing that for years, and she kind of left. And then the Taylor Swift thing. She loves, she loves Tay, and she loves this whole story. She follows the Kelseys, all that stuff. Like she's very basic in that regard. And I'm like I'm in on that story. Like the more like documentary I watch or the coverage of it, I'm like, okay, I'm good with this. Overall, this is a good thing for the NFL. I think it's a good thing for football. I think it's a good thing when you're seeing like female flag football popping up at high schools. It's going to be in the Olympics. And, like I think this is a good way to grow the game and make it more kind of accessible for more people. So overall, that makes me root for the Chiefs, I think, for some reason. I think Mahomes is great. I think Mahomes is great without having like gaudy stats I think he understands the game better than the people he's playing it against.
Sure.
I think in its purest form. So I do think that the Chiefs will win. But that being said, I have no problem with the Eagles winning either, because Saquon Barkley, what a monster. What a guy who had to deal with New York Giants for the last how many years of his career and be wasted there. Like,
I think where it comes down to for me is like you're either rooting for Saquon or you're rooting for DeAndre Hopkins, and I'd be happy if either one of them got a Super Bowl ring.
I do love me some D Hop. He's been kind of
he's been good to me. He's been good to me and my family.
Yeah, right. He won many a football Titans, Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
So he's won some championships for some people, boy.
Yeah. Him and Julio were two people that were really very important in my life, and I don't think Julio got a ring ever. So I'd like to see D Hop get one. But yeah, I don't know. We'll watch. I'll watch with some friends, some beer friends. We'll eat some dips. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun night.
Wait, we'll eat some dips.
I can't wait for it.
Football.
Yeah,
No worries, no care about. I mean, commercials, any of that stuff. Man,
no, I don't care.
You'd rather have like a record on or something.
No, we'll have the audio on. It's just like it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like, man, everything going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's no, you can go the other way.
I gotta care about this fucking celebrity.
You can go the other way. I'm like, this is good to shut my brain off. And,
sure. I was like, oh man, look, Matthew McConaughey's out here selling Tostitos.
How about
like,
it?
Yippee! Like
doing the Bears stuff and those commercials. Matthew McConaughey's out here getting it.
Yeah,
Uber Eats, really.
Man, God bless those people.
Jerry's
good
eating rice.
Yeah.
Jerry's eating rice commercial. They hit it out of the park.
I did. All the football I watch, I usually instantly am muting every single commercial as it comes on.
Well, that's our generation now, right?
Yeah.
Like, because we're in a weird spot though, right? Because we grew up with all the commercials, but like we were growing up in that era with like VCRs and recording things. Yep. Then DVRs came along, and you're like, so it's like we have the weird taste of like, yeah, you fucking suffered through these commercials like I did. That's what I'm telling my kid, like, but at the same time, like, yeah, it's better if you don't have to watch them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Dude, that's really all I have. Anything you want to talk about before we call it quits? I know I kept you here for 3 hours, so.
No, who knew I had 3 hours worth of stuff to talk about?
I knew.
Not me.
That's why I reached out to you months ago and said, hey, we should do this, because I knew you'd have something to talk about, for fun, for not fun, for serious, all that.
I'll say a few things. Shout out to Johnsky. Which camera?
I love him. He's
Johnsky.
Gonna be,
shout out to Kyle.
He's going to come on eventually, but it's like it's such a crazy time for him always. It's the way he lives his life and making incredible food and La Dolce Vita. He's so kind and awesome. If you go there, he'd just be like, what do you want, dude? Don't worry about the menu. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, I'll just make it. So I'll second that shout out to Johnsky, and hopefully he'll be a guest on here. For those of you who don't know Johnsky, he was a member of the original Phase 3 crew. Ended up being Eric's like kind of right-hand man in the sales side of things and everybody's favorite just person there, really. And then
man of the people.
And he had a background in food and culinary, and then the place he used to work for, call him Johnny Saute, became Johnny Head Chef over at La Dolce Vita in the Lamont area, which is right next to Pollyanna for all you beer folks. So go out there and have some Italian food and some beer.
Yeah.
Anyways, after Johnsky, shout out
to Kyle.
Kyle Damon.
Kyle Damon. Shout out to Mac. Shout out to Kylene, whose birthday is this weekend.
Go check her out at Standard Meadery.
Shout out to Katie, Zach.
Katie's going to be on soon. I told Katie she can come on here and talk about nutrition and just espouse all the things she hates about the way people approach their food.
I'll watch that episode. Shout out to Zach, who just left.
Love you, Zach.
Shout out to...
What band is he doing right now? I don't remember the name of it now. I feel
Idols?
Isles of something. Sorry. It's really good music too. Like Jack's a fucking talented guitar player, singer, all that.
Who else do I need to shout out?
That's a hell of a crew we had.
It was really incredible.
Mark Mesro's probably killing the wine game right now.
Shout out to Mark.
He's probably killing the wine game.
I mean,
Efron's everywhere, DJing. He's doing everything.
It was a really great crew that I really came into, like what for me felt like I was coming into like an already established family and everyone was really welcoming, and I was really appreciative of that. So shout out to everyone who was there and who was able to call a coworker. Now hopefully I can call a friend, and that includes you, bud.
Hell yeah, dude.
Let's take care of each other. That's really it. Take care of each other. Let's take care of ourselves and our lives and this planet that we live on. Not to get all hippy dippy, but
I just like people being reasonable, you know.
That's all I'm saying.
Being cool, being reasonable, and that was always you. Like, I mean, on paper, maybe you and I wouldn't have been great friends, but we get to know each other a little bit. I think we could definitely, if I moved into your neighborhood, we'd totally be hanging out every day. Like, I'd be sipping on some beers, talking shit with you, watching sports, and hopefully just coming to your softball games, screaming, just being like the fan. Like, why do we have a fan now? This guy, I don't know. He likes the fucking idea of us playing softball together.
Well, we're called Team Tuba. We
Team
play
Tuba.
every Thursday in the summertime at Wells Park in Chicago. Joe,
come check him out.
And everybody are welcome between usually 5:30 and 7:30 between June and the end of mid-August. We'll be there. So.
Find Eric potentially on Beer Temple podcast if you want to hear some modern hop talk. Dude. I really appreciate you, just not only just coming out here. I appreciate you as a person. I appreciate the way you focus on life and the way you treat people around you. I've never got to meet a little of you, Rachel, yet, but you guys seem like you got your shit figured out, and you guys are doing it, and I appreciate just the way you kind of, like you said, you care about people. You care about the people around you. It's legit. There's never bullshit. There's no like beating around the bush. There's no, it's direct, it's open, and it's friendly and kind. So
for better or worse.
Yep. Much love for that, dude. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for
having me, bud.
All right, let's get out of here. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.